By the way, Mike Graham's doing a striptease. He'll be in a minute. Don't ask why.
Am I live here?
Yes.
Right. Well, thanks very much for telling me. And this is the way this business works. Actually, things are doing rather well. I just briefly touch on this, which is the good news, is that Talk Radio's latest Radar numbers, Radar is the official kind of stats audience business, have just come out, which shows that Talk Radio's audience has collapsed, right? It's fallen by 21%. Hooray! Right? And the reason for that is that Mike Graham moved in January, as you know, to UK Live. Here we are, UK Live. UK Live's gone that way. Talk Radio's gone down that way. So congratulations for that. I tell you another one that will probably cheer you up is that GB News Radio has gone off the dial. Incredible numbers. Literally their audience is 30-odd% up and their hours of 78%. Hours is the trading currency. It's a bit boring, but it's what it means is the amount of time you spend actually listening. They've done well. So those of us on the right delivering populist radio and populist television are doing phenomenally. Virgin Radio, by the way, completely down the tube. Now, the thing that interests me today on the more serious topics, which I don't want to start boring you with, is the departure. And can we have 2 minutes silence for Professor Jason Arday? An Arday's night, as we now call it, right? That's for the older viewers. The issue there is he should never have been allowed to stay that long. Actually, having had a look at his CV, he should never have been allowed to join. But if you turn up claiming to be all kinds of people, a visiting professor in Ohio, a visiting professor in Glasgow, you run 600 miles in 6 days, you've raised 5.5 million for charity. Cambridge say, hello, hello, here we go, right? So he becomes a poster boy for DEI and a poster boy really for Cambridge. Now, Cambridge has not been doing well, okay? Slipping down the kind of global league. And it's decisions like that which have affected them. So the pile-on starts. Other professors come along and say, actually, a load of his stuff which got him his thesis, his PhD, actually came from somewhere else. They say this, and Cambridge say, no, it didn't. Perfectly all right. And he said, no, it definitely did. There are 160 separate examples that this stuff was stolen from another student and whose PhD it was used in. So they say, I don't care, we're not going to do anything about it. And then somebody says, well, he didn't write this book, he said he didn't do this, he didn't do the other, and then, hello, here we come, try autism. He said, I've got autism, yeah, and if you're nasty to me, you'll be hearing from me. Not only do you hear from him, you also hear from the police, who unbelievably get involved in this farrago of lies being peddled by this guy and actually warn. Hold on 1 second.
Hold on.
I'm in the middle of a rant here.
Let's have a look in there.
There's nothing down there.
No,
There's nothing down there. It's a complaint by my third wife.
There you go.
Right. Thanks very much. That was very enjoyable. Can I just say that you don't see this on the 10 o'clock news. Anyway, look, he's gone. He's finished. And this is what I say about that. Gives him more time to, 1, marry Elizabeth Taylor, 2, do a sequel to Ulysses, 3, play for Arsenal. Clearly the guy has a fantasy complex, and how it is that this wasn't discovered by Cambridge is a question mark about Cambridge. And isn't the reality of it, or let's face the reality, that had he been white, he'd have been fired years ago, and B, would never have been hired, actually, let's be honest. Because people would have looked into it, and the first sign that there was plagiarism involved would have been the last we would have heard of a white version of Professor Arday. I'm afraid that's something we simply have to live with in this world, and it's very aggravating. But if you get annoyed at every example of over promotion because of colour, then you're going to be very, very aggravated for a long time. And the thing I like about it is that every time the old left comes steaming in saying, "You're all racist, you're all racist," another example of him telling lies and fantasy was wheeled out. So goodbye, Professor Ade. We'll never hear from him again. And the book in which he was hoping to make $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million, travel across America. And if you get speaking engagements in America, by the way, you have absolutely landed on your feet. So Boris Johnson was a totally and completely hopeless Prime Minister, a disaster for our country and a disgrace to himself as well. So apart from that, everything was going well. However, on the speaking circuit, he was fantastic because that humour that he had, which works so badly once in office when you have serious issues which involve serious people to deal with, actually was not required on the lecterns, and therefore he was great. Anyway, he's made about 6 or 7 million quid. He's got a £3.5 million house up in Oxfordshire now. Everything's great for him. His missus doesn't have to worry about the spotlight and everything. So that has now been denied to Professor Ade. Because he's gone in disgrace, it means he won't get a plug nickel. However, I guarantee to you, he ends up giving some big interview to The Guardian. Not live, because were it live, of course, he can get caught out. And that they say that how racism brought me down. It wasn't racism, it was your lies and fantasies. So I ask you, next time you're reading The Guardian and you're not feeling very well, to remember that when you read about you personally being accused of racism. This is what happens in this world now. It's sad. But anyway, to cheer us all up is a man who spent last night at A&E following an extensive plonk of the week in which another one of my guests is turning up. What we're going to do, we're going to double here with an AA meeting in which almost everybody in this room appears to have a drink-related issue. Let me just welcome Mike Graham.
Very good morning to you, Kelvin. Thank you so much for that intro. And of course, there's nothing worse, is there, than a recently converted former alcoholic who I seem to remember once collapsed into the ample bosom of a woman over lunch many years ago. Yeah. I don't want to go into too many details, but
well, no, that's fair enough. I'll tell you what happened there. I was with Dame Eve Pollard,
yes,
right, married to Sir Nick Lloyd, who was the editor of the Daily Express, who managed during his editorship with my brother to go and play 10 holes of golf at Dulwich Golf Club during lunchtime.
Well, Royal Blackheath quite often as well.
Royal Blackheath. Yeah. They go at, say, 10 to 12 and come back at 5 to 3. Right. And they didn't know whether the paper was any good, but they were very worried about their own game.
Well, I remember, you know, there were many things I did at the Express over the course of time, but one of my favourite memories is the night that Princess Diana did the Panorama interview.
Oh, yeah.
You know, with old Martin Bashir.
Yeah.
And I remember the thing I mostly remember is that at 7 o'clock at night, an hour before the broadcast or so, I saw Nick Lloyd walking. He had a briefcase. He's walking out the door. Right, and I went. He said, "Good luck." I said, "Sorry." I was the night editor, right? So I'm on the back bench. And he's going, "I'll see you later." I'm like, "Well, you're not staying?" No. I've got dinner with somebody, or other. You know. And so I was and Paul Potts, who was the deputy editor, also on the missing list. Right?
No.
Your brother, who was meant to be my boss, also not there, right? So I was single, and a not very experienced backbench operative, was single-handedly on the backbench with Ian Walker, who was the news editor. And we were the two guys that got the paper out that night. And in the morning, of course, I got a phone call from your brother saying, Nick's not happy, you know. I said, what do you mean he's not happy with the way we... I said, are you having... I almost like went and throttled him. I was like, are you seriously going to give me a hard time? I've been up till 3 in the morning doing about 5 different editions, and you lot weren't even here. Yeah. You know.
And what was his explanation of all this? Well, did you ask him where he was?
Well, they were all on days... They'd all taken days off.
No.
And I went, how can you take a day off? This is like the biggest story of all time. Because I remember, you know, the first edition was I Will Not Go Quietly. Yeah. Bang, right? 10 o'clock, straight out the door. And then the next one was, there were 3 of us in this marriage. Christ, you know, in the 3rd edition, it was brilliant. It was one of the greatest nights of my life, you know. And they were all off. And I could never understand it.
That's a disgraceful story.
I know. And we ended up, quite rightly, as you would have expected, in a dive somewhere off Knightsbridge, drinking with some special branch officers till about 4 a.m, and getting all the page proofs delivered to us. You know, going, oh, this is good. You know, so we're all tapping ourselves on the back, going, this is brilliant. And until the morning, when we got the call from the editor, he wasn't very happy.
He wasn't very happy. And he said, well, where are you? I'm in my club. Yeah. Thanks very much. Yeah. Right, so what do you make of the plagiarism?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Because I don't, it's a bit like the migrants thing, right? I have nothing against migrants who want to come here for a better life. I have a real problem with the people who are helping them do it, like the NGOs and the charities and all that. I have a problem with Cambridge University and all of the kind of, you know, BBC types and everyone who didn't want to ask a question because this guy's black. Yeah. It's an absolute disgrace, you know, because as you said, if he was white, he would never have probably been even given the position in the first place. But also, if I came to you and said, oh, by the way, Kelvin, I've got a broken leg, yeah. You know, I've just run 600 miles, you know, since Saturday. Brilliant, fantastic, well done. Have a doctorate. You know, they'd never give you that. They'd go, you're talking absolute cobblers.
Right, I think it's been very bad for Cambridge.
Yeah.
Because it has shine a spotlight on one of the essential unfairnesses of life now, that they will not research, nor will they castigate people who clearly are just plain telling lies.
And if you look inside, if you saw that, I don't know if you saw the Oxford Union debate recently with which Lawrence Fox, who you had on yesterday, was at, you know, the capturing of our academia, if you like, by ethnic minorities is now complete, right? You go to any student union in Oxford or Cambridge, whichever college you want to go to, it's all Middle Eastern people, it's all black people, it's all, you know, foreigners basically.
Squeezing out, actually. The white don't want to turn up there because actually they feel like outsiders in their own country.
Absolutely.
So some good news for you, which I hope that you would have spotted, but if you haven't, it is good news, is that Talk Radio's audience has collapsed by 21%. And the reason it's collapsed, and the reason
Sorry. My condolences. Well, they finally admitted it, right? Because you know what they did.
No, but hold on a second. The reason is, as I've pointed out in the tweet, is your move from Talk Radio to UK Live, right? Now, UK Live will one day be a behemoth.
It will. Right?
At the moment, it's just a bee, but the moth is on its way. Is on its way. So congratulations for causing the problem. Of course, the bloke who took your place is a friend of yours, isn't he?
Jeremy Kyle.
Jeremy Kyle. Yeah. Right. Now, Jeremy Kyle's good at insulting thick council house tenants.
You don't have a good word to say about him, do you?
Well, I have a word for him, but it's not a good word, right? Look, I'm in favour of talent. I'm massive.
Jeremy Kyle is a very, very decent guy, right? He was very helpful to me during my time of trouble.
Okay,
right?
fine.
And because I was very good to him in his time of trouble, because he had been completely cancelled, as you might remember.
Yes, I do. But there is a difference between you two guys. Yeah. One, you are a natural broadcaster in the sense of, you know, whether it's YouTube or radio or whatever. Whereas he made his money by abusing dim council house tenants, and when it was found out that this actually had led to a number of the people that he was cross-questioning killing themselves.
But do you know what's interesting?
His job then disappeared.
No, but you know what's interesting about Jeremy? The reason he's good at what he does is because he actually started in radio, and proper radio people know this, right?
But it was music radio. It wasn't speech radio.
No, it was speech radio. He did.
I thought he was in Birmingham or something.
Yeah, but he did an overnight show, and he started.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he did the whole business of. You know, he had an agony aunt would come in. He had people ringing up about sex problems.
We should do that.
So you know, we should have.
That is a good idea.
It is.
Where's Pooch?
Where is Pooch?
Right, hold on a second. We got the Pooch family here.
Yeah.
We should start doing.
We should do that.
We should start doing because we can have a bloody good laugh. Because the best ones I ever read were actually the ones done by Rod.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
Rod's one when a woman would
Deirdre scenario.
do a long Deirdre in which somebody would say, my wife she's very tense and all the rest of it. You know, I'm not sure she loves me, and she seems to be showing some interest to the milkman and all the rest of it. And right at the end, said, "What do you think the solution to this is?" And he would always answer in the same way. He said, "A bloody good rogering would be helpful, right?" Now, and I think if we started doing that, in which you take quite serious issues, but always the answer is a good dollop of sex.
Right.
Is actually it would probably cheer up.
Everybody loves it. I mean, there is no doubt that you can whichever broadcast outfit you're in, you can always go down that route because you'll get people tuning in because everybody loves to hear.
Right. Okay.
stories.
So I had a friend.
Yeah.
I know that.
I don't believe that for a minute.
All right. I know somebody.
Right. Okay.
Right, so in fact, he's a very good friend of mine, actually. So he is going home at, this is like 20 odd years ago, right. Possibly around about 20 years ago. He is going home, it's like 10 o'clock at night or 10:15. He is listening to Capital Radio.
Yeah.
They have a kind of agony aunt on there who takes in calls.
Yeah.
A woman comes on.
Wasn't it Anna Rayburn? Was it Anna Rayburn?
It wasn't in that one, but it was like that. It was like Anna Rayburn.
Yeah.
A woman comes on and says, I have a problem. I don't love my husband. I don't like him near me. I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like the other. It was my mate's wife. Right. He is listening. He's listening to his own. He's listening to his own wife. He goes home, right? And he says, "Was that you on the phone, on the radio?" She says, "Yes," which was one of the more uncomfortable conversations that you're likely to hear. Devastated him.
Wow.
And ended the marriage. So there's a cheerful story for everybody, right? And is anybody?
That's brilliant. That is fantastic.
Yeah. So you've got Jeremy Kyle killing people on national television. And making a load of money out of it because he was enormously famous at one time, right?
Yeah.
And now does he do a good job on breakfast radio?
He does. People, yes, he does. Yeah,
but he's not Mike Graham.
But he's not me. But nobody is. You know, what are you going to do? You know.
Did you hear that?
Nobody is me.
You'd have thought you were sitting next to Beyonce over here. Wouldn't you? Anyway,
Beyondy.
Beyond ability.
No, listen. I've been gifted, thankfully, with the ability.
Next, no.
With the ability.
Tell me, Mike, when did you first know you were a genius? Well, it's funny you should say that.
I've always known it.
Deep down, it was only a matter of time before you get discovered. Can I ask you one final question before I'm sure you have to leave?
I do, yeah.
Right.
Because I've got to go out with Donald again later. So I've got to get some sleep in.
Let me ask you this. How much alcohol between plonk of the week and finally you getting ejected from a curry house, how much alcohol do you think was consumed between everybody?
Well, we opened about 6 bottles in there, but we didn't finish them all.
Oh, right. That was decent of you.
Yeah. It started off with the...
You're sending some round to Professor Arday.
Then we went to the curry house, and I actually started off with some beer because I prefer a beer with my curry.
Okay, fine.
But he insisted on buying some Barolo because it was loaded, right? Yeah. So he bought some Barolo, and then this bunch of people who were from the cricketing fraternity had been at the Oval watching cricket, came over and sort of joined in and gifted us a bottle of Chablis. So I then decided to blend the Chablis and the Barolo.
I've heard that. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Wine connoisseurs are horrified by it. You know, we managed to clear the room. A load of people left.
I know they were appalled by your language, weren't they?
Apparently so.
Because you know what the language was? It was English.
English, yeah. What is this strange? And when we said to the waiter, I said, "What was their problem?" And he went, "Some of them were disabled." And I went, "So, what's that got to do with anything?" I mean, I wasn't saying anything about anybody who was disabled. No. I said they all walked out, by the way. What sort of disabled were they then?
Right. Well, I saw. You know, there's a William Hill along there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. Now this is both slightly blackist and very fattest. Right. I saw a huge lady on a mobility scooter coming up the road, right? I mean, when I say huge, you know, you basically, when she got off
got to get out the pavement.
Boom, like that, right? And so that's a sad sight, isn't it? Lady that size, the mobility scooter and everything. She stops outside the William Hills, gets off and walks straight in. I thought, and there's some of us.
What's the trifecta for today?
Yeah.
Right?
So there we are. Okay, well.
I mean, to be honest, it wasn't a massively imbibing night.
It was so bad. I met Donald outside one of the more low-level cafe houses in this area, and
we'll get a bacon sarnie.
He's looking vacantly into the distance, and I said, "Is everything all right, Donald?" He said, "I'll tell you in a minute." Right. Okay.
Top man.
A great night, Mike. Great news.
Good to see you.
Talk radio collapses.
Yeah. Sorry
Mike,
to hear that.
Your show actually goes from strength to strength, and I'm very pleased to do it because one of the effects is if you have a decent audience, I go with it.
Yeah.
And if you go down the old tubola, then I go down there. And to be honest, I can't afford to keep subsidising my own show.
No, I know. It's true.
So we've got to think up some ideas. Anyway, good to see you, Mike.
Top man. Good to see you.
Okay, fine. After Mike, I love having Mike on. It kind of going down memory lane is one of the great moments. Okay, so coming up now, Damien Pudner, economist. We have some very bad news. Thanks to Labour, but also thanks to the Tories. We are absolutely up creek financially. We've just seen the debt. The national debt now is running into 3 trillion. It took us the thick end of 30 odd years to get $1 trillion in debt. It's taken us 10 years to get 2 trillion in debt, and it's only taken us 6 years to get 1 trillion in debt. These are serious issues. No gags about alcohol, no gags about anything. We have to do something about it. Damien is a noted economist, and he is going to suggest what we really have to do. Damien, good to see you.
How are you, mate?
You look worse than Mike Graham.
I do.
What on earth is going on in this company? Look, can I just point out to you?
I did have a drink.
You don't have to turn up pissed here to give your views, right? We want them without alcohol.
I did have a drink last night, but I had spent 2 days in court. Long story.
Okay, fine.
So I did have a drink last night, but it is hay fever.
Okay,
that's my excuse.
Yeah. So these are serious numbers.
No, they are.
For a country, or I view them as serious. Should I be worried about them?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're screwed as a country.
Okay.
You know, we're absolutely up the proverbial creek.
Right.
Is the reality. You know, 3 trillion of debt.
Yeah.
That's 95% of GDP. So GDP is the total amount of output, the value of output in the economy. So we're right up against, the total value of the economy and borrowing.
So what is the? So I'm an ordinary person. 3 trillion is too much for me to understand, okay? Yep. What is going to be the net outcome of a 3 million debt? Is it interest rates are going to rise? I mean, is my mortgage going to cost more money? If I try and buy something, is it going to cost more?
So when you get to that level of debt, the people that lend the money to the UK, so the investors, the pension funds, insurance companies, and all these foreign investors, they will just demand a higher return on their investment. So effectively a higher, absolutely. Against a credit default, or the fact that the economy is going to slow and they're going to have to borrow more and more and more. Right. So to compensate for that, they'll want a higher rate of interest on their bonds, basically. So on the money that they lend, and that effectively will push mortgages up for people, borrowing generally up for people.
But I keep on reading, Damien, that in fact, over the next year, interest rates are likely, if we can solve Iran, which we may not be able to solve, the interest rates are more likely to go down than go up.
Well, this is the issue, and I think that rates initially will have to go down before they go up. And the reason for that is the economy is so bad, the labour market is so fragile. We are going to see an increase in unemployment. We are going to see very anemic growth. And if you have anemic growth, then of course you have less tax revenue. You have less tax revenue, what are you going to do? You're either going to have to borrow more money
or raise taxes.
Or both. Yeah. And I think on the current trajectory that we're going on, we're probably going to have to do both. So we'll have spending cuts, austerity, if you want to call it that.
So we're definitely
and we're definitely going to get increases in taxes. Now, whether that is increases in taxes on the individual or on companies, that's up for debate. I think it'll be on both.
So if I are, so the way it'll be delivered won't be to ordinary people because they haven't got any money, or they will have to pay just like everybody else.
Oh, they'll just have to pay like everyone
Good.
else. So if you're in the middle
of
classes, and I've said this before, if you're in 35, 40, 50,000 a year, expect your taxes to go up. The alternative is very serious reductions in spending, and I cannot see a socialist Labour government, whether it's Burnham in charge or it's somebody else, actually taking the chainsaw to spending. It's just not going to happen. So taxes are going to go up. As a result, I think our borrowing is also going to go up. Interest rates are going to go up. Long term, your children, their children are all going to pay for the mismanagement of the economy. Right? No, they will. They will end up paying. We're not going to. We'll pay some of it. But if you think we're at 95% of GDP now, borrowing, the OBR itself says if we continue on the current trend demographically and on the current spending trend, that will go up to 270% of GDP in 50 years. So we're already paying.
Can I just point out, Damien, that I know that you're in the gloom business.
I am.
But you are not going to be here, possibly looking like that in 7 years.
But it's morally wrong that our children and grandchildren will pay for this.
Yeah.
We need politicians with some balls, basically, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
They need to make the difficult decisions. They need to be honest with the public. There's going to be pain. We've got into a situation where the only way out is with some short-term pain. Simple as that. So I'm sorry, the reality is that maybe the medium to long term will look better, but the short term expect some pain, and politicians need to start getting honest with the public.
Okay, so you're not in business. You haven't really got an entrepreneurial bone in your body or whatever, right? You don't make a lot of money. Are you going to suffer? Is the suffering? See, at the moment, it's quite clear that if you're in the wealthy middle classes, you're done for.
If you pay tax, you'll suffer. If you don't pay tax and don't work, you're going to be pretty much cushioned.
Is that right?
So, yeah.
Well, that is a shocking equation, that.
I mean, I cannot see the will in this government, and even in the last government, to be honest.
No, the last government was an absolute shocker.
To take the decisions that are needed. We cannot keep spending $333 billion a year on welfare. That's 25% of everything the government spends, Kelvin, goes on welfare.
You see, and the other thing is, I don't think the pensioners are entitled to the damn stuff as well. They've had a great run. And just freeze it all. And what they're saying, a Labour government or a Tory government, right, are saying, actually, if we do that, we're going to get slung out. I'd say, yeah, okay. Well,
Kelvin, you and I both know that off camera, all the politicians of whatever party admit the triple lock has to go.
Yeah.
But as soon as that camera is on them, no, we're going to keep it. We're going to protect the grey-haired voters. No, they know it's got to go. So just do it. Stop procrastinating. Just do it.
But there is no appetite anywhere in the world. I mean, one of the interesting things, did you see that victory in America of who the Democrats chose to take on the Republicans? I think, was it in Michigan? I can't remember. They chose the most left wing.
Right.
And you're going to start seeing this in America. I wonder what will happen over here, right? You're going left. Everywhere, it looks as though you're going right, but actually, when push comes to shove, people say, "I tell you what, I'll vote for myself in all this."
Well, yeah, you're right. We've been heading left politically in this country for probably the last decade, even under the Tories. They're no longer Tories. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Then they do not have core conservative values.
Which is why that latest YouGov poll I found most interesting, because you would have thought with all the shite being poured on Nigel Farage that he would have if that were either Kemi or it were Burnham, they would have had a massive effect on it.
Yeah.
Instead of that, he went up a point to 23%. So what you're beginning to see is the reform, regardless as if they're this. Hello, what's that? Another 5 million turned up under my pillow. Right, it's bloody amazing, isn't it, when you're leader of a party, how money turns up. So, even so, people said we'd rather have, with all the rubbish around Farage, we'd rather have him.
Yes.
Than we would have others.
That's a damning indictment, isn't it?
And it is amazing because that would never have happened under any other political area that I can think of.
So what happens if Reform and Restore join forces?
That's never going to happen, mate.
You don't think?
That is never going to happen. No. I really think I am absolutely not in that boat with Lowe.
But it would guarantee a win at the next general election.
Yeah,
surely.
But they are too far apart, man. And actually, there are aspects to the Lowe prospectus which I personally could not
sign
up
to.
Yeah. I could not go with. There's a good piece in the Telegraph about that today. So if you can get a hold of that, there's a very good piece. And look, it doesn't mean to say that he hasn't got a role in democracy. Fine, he seems to be a Democrat, which is at least is a step in the right direction. Good. Fine. So. You're Prime Minister in a surprise announcement.
Fantastic.
How much of a cut would our welfare have to take?
Oh, it needs to be big.
What, would it be like 8%, 7%?
No. We're looking at 20%. A 20% cut on the welfare bill, which is about 60 billion a year. 60 billion a year.
In doing that. And also sentencing some people who have been getting free money, right? I totally get it. In fact, I know one area which I would really clamp down on. Is that possible? Is that possible?
It is possible, and there are certain areas of the welfare bill that can be cut. And it would take time.
If you just froze the triple lock, just said, boom, it's never going up again. Is that enough, or do you have to actually have to say the pension actually has to come down?
It's not enough. But well, you could do that to the triple lock, and it would generate some income, but it wouldn't be enough income. But also, you're probably targeting the wrong people, because there is so much waste and so much fraud within the welfare system itself that you should be looking at that in conjunction with doing something.
But whenever I hear about cutting back on fraud, once you having analysed it a little bit, actually it hasn't really worked. Literally, well, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. No. I'm just saying that it doesn't seem to work.
No, there's no easy processes. But we have better technology now. We have AI.
Yeah,
there should be a way to weed these people out. And it's just not being done. And it should be, a good bang for your buck, using AI to find these people and, pull back the money and actually send them to court and get them to pay back the money, not disappear to Spain or wherever. And
well, I had a cleaner once who came to me and said, look, I've done something mad and all the rest of it. The social services want me to appear in court. And I said, well, you can go take me to court. I said, I'm never going to pay.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what's the answer? She said, I need to, if I could raise X £100, they won't take me to court. So on that basis, I'd worked with her for about 15, 20 years. There have been a number of wives who've become a part of this. I was closer to her than I was to some of the domestic arrangements. But, and I had to sort that out. I just wonder, taking very poor people to court when they haven't actually got any money is actually a good idea, or is it just performative, really?
It's performative, it is really, but it's more of a case of they just take the money away as soon as the money's not there and it's not available or it's not as easy to get. Yeah. The whole thing with PIP and mobility, it just makes me so angry. The fact that you can not have a face-to-face assessment for 10 years and keep claiming thousands of pounds a month. How is that possible in 2026? COVID was 5 years ago. We've moved on a long way from there.
True.
We need to really change the whole system. And just coming back to the 3 trillion, which has effectively screwed the economy, and certainly for our children, that doesn't even include the 1.3 trillion or even 1.4 trillion of the pensions. Unfunded public sector pensions.
Nobody ever mentions in the council tax that 25% of your council tax
goes to your
pensions. It's going into the pensions.
Yeah.
And nobody ever mentioned it, as though this is quite normal.
You know, you and I, when we were working, what would we getting? 9%, 8% on a private pension, possibly from our employer. What do you get now as a teacher? 28, 29, 30%. Civil service, 30%.
It's no wonder they all quit at 50, by the way.
Exactly. And then get second jobs.
Yeah. So they do. Or, yes, actually, well, if you do 30 years, look, if I'm a copper, I think that's fair enough, right? 30 years of being a copper, actually, you're entitled to every penny. And that may even be true, and might be true, of the ambulance people, right? But honestly, teaching, important job. I'm not saying it's not an important job. I just wonder whether they are entitled to leg it at 51, having done 30 odd years.
No, I agree. I mean, I do know actually from school days a police officer who retired early in his 50s and then became a train driver on 70,000 a year.
Good for him.
Excellent.
Good for him.
He was telling me how he has 5 houses that are buy-to-let houses. I mean, this is a bloody police officer and a train driver.
Good for
but,
him.
You know, capitalism,
Well,
it works.
Hold on a second, let me just practice. Is this a straight line? Yeah, 70,000 a year. Is there any way of coming off these
You're going to do
rails?
the lever, back and forth, fast, slow.
Tough day at the office, dear. Oh, shocking. Absolutely shocking. I've got bloody tennis elbow. I'll tell you what.
You got to have your book in the one hand, right?
I really objected. There was a shocking crash the other day, wasn't it, where a train went into a stationary car.
Yeah.
And the first thing the trade union said was, well, if we'd had that alert, which can go on there, nobody pointed out, well, it would have been probably more helpful if the driver hadn't gone through a red light.
Yeah.
And, you know, honestly, constantly trying to blame others. Damien, I'm afraid you have to leave us.
I do.
Thank you very much indeed.
Kelvin, great to see you as always.
Yeah, nice to see you, man.
Cheers,
all right,
mate.
Very
Thank
good
you.
to see you. So, Damien, we're totally up shit creek, and Damien is there to shovel it at us. Thank you so much for actually another tough day at the office here. Now, we're gonna take the news, and then afterwards we have a big nightclub impresario joining us. And he's going to talk about one of the strangest aspects that I have seen, which is basically a spin out of COVID, has been the collapse of the nighttime economy. He knows it particularly from Scotland. I mean, he knows it from all over the country. It's also true of London. Something very odd is happening. Young people are not going clubbing in the way that they did, although strangely enough, they've got older people now going clubbing. So, you know, every time a Queen record's mentioned, somebody with arthritis stands up and waves their hands in the air. That could be me as a Doja Cat fan, which is she's in rather better shape than I am, as I discovered at a concert I went to. So we're going to talk about that. So I wonder whether we might be able to go to the news and then introduce Donald.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. A body has been recovered in the search for a 13-year-old boy who got into difficulty while swimming off Hornsea on the East Yorkshire coast. Police say the death is not being treated as suspicious. Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank have welcomed their third child, a baby girl born in Lisbon, Portugal. Britain is heading for what could be its worst cereal harvest in 4 decades after the driest July on record in England and Wales, with farmers warning of major crop losses from prolonged drought and heat. Politically, Reform UK has regained a poll lead over Labour, amid talk that any early burn and bounce under the new Prime Minister may already be fading. Laters, Tigers.
Yeah, hi there. Welcome back. Kelvin MacKenzie here. As I was saying, a bizarre outturn of COVID appears to be that the young aren't going out clubbing in the way that they used to. And there's another really, really bizarre aspect to it, which is that once they're in the clubs, they spend time in the medical room and with anxiety and depression and everything. And that's not due to the prices that Donald charges. Welcome, Donald.
Hi, Kelvin. How are you?
Yeah, very well, man. So, Donald McLeod, he's been in the nightclub business for how long?
Oh, Christ, 35. No, nearly 40 years.
Nearly 40
before
years.
that, I was a musician in a touring band. You know.
So the reason that Donald may not look as great as he might have done.
Sorry, I look fantastic. Come on.
He looks good for his age, but is that he was out with Mike Graham last night.
Yeah.
And we've discovered that the Majestic have been drunk dry by his efforts. Look, Donald, I want to talk about what your career is, which is basically in the night, basically in the clubbing business. Tell me, how have you seen it change over the last, 4 or 5 years since COVID?
Yeah, well, my career has taken many paths and turns, and not least that I'm part of the UK Live thing, which I'm very proud to be part of. So, yeah, but with the nightclubs, there has been a demise over the past 10 years, and particularly since COVID. And pre-COVID, I think after COVID, we employ hospitality in general in Scotland employs about 250,000 people, and is worth about 5 billion to the economy of Scotland, but it's collapsing all over. I mean, in recent.
What does it mean by collapsing?
Well,
shutting or?
293 pubs have disappeared in the past sort of 5 years. We've seen what I've got here. 42 nightclubs have been lost. That's a 34% drop in Scotland, and that's getting replicated, and it's in many areas in England. It's worse.
Yeah.
But the challenges have been immense. We've not. The Labour government came in and accelerated it with the employers' national insurance rises. That was a catastrophic blow. Rates increases, new valuations, and then
can you not just put prices up, or is there a resistance?
No, there's a ceiling. Your prices are as high as they can go. You're actually in a.
How much do you charge? Right, so I turn up.
Right, it can be anything between £5 and 15, depending on the event that you're putting on. And we also put shows on, bands on, and the prices for bands have went through the roof as well. And that's primarily because the cost of products have went up, massively since COVID. Energy costs through the roof, rates, and something just alluded to, through the roof, and plus the increase, plus there's been the increases in minimum and living wage, and that is all, been a huge. So
you keep your prices. I mean, I'd say 5 to 15 quid is a good bet, right? That's good for a night out. Mm-hmm. Are you getting the numbers through, or are the numbers actually have dropped?
Numbers are dropping right across the sector, and that is particularly acute in Glasgow. Where it's seen a massive fall in Glasgow, but that's been accelerated because of the ideological lunatics in the council putting in the LAZ zones, bringing in LEZ, which stopped many people coming in driving
in and finding nowhere to park.
Yeah, and the fines have been ridiculous. They double. You get £100, then it doubles, and it keeps going up. For every time you breach the zone in an older car. Plus this insane drive to put in more bus gates, bus lanes, cycle lanes, reduced parking, and the parking's reduced, and then they put the prices up in parking. So, since they brought in the LEZ, and I remember the first year, one of the stats was 3 million visits, fell off fell off in Glasgow. There's also been problems recently over, say, the Union Street fire. That caused another 1 million people not to come in. So footfall has fallen off a cliff, basically. But that's happened. You see, everywhere they put this, they start changing the road layouts, and they start bringing in the increasing parking or 20-mile zones, ULEZ down here. You actually see a footfall crash in most of these towns and cities that are doing it. And I think there was a stat that I saw, it was something like 43% of towns that used to have nightclubs in the UK no longer have them. They're gone, and that's been since COVID. So it's
so you do get people inside your nightclubs. Mm-hmm. They are enjoying themselves. Mm-hmm. They are young. What kind of age? 18 to 25 or something like that. But the thing that interested me when we were having a discussion is that you have kind of medical rooms, obviously.
Yeah.
And you find that they're getting packed, but they're getting packed with a kind of person that you didn't think you'd see.
Well, in the past, way back in the old days, with putting the rose-tinted specs on, the good old days, you would have your medical room would be full of people, you say, females in particular with cut feet with broken glass. So it's not glass anymore, it's plastics. That went away. But you would be the occasional assault, and you'd be having to deal with that. But that's all changed now. Since COVID, you've got the kids that have been coming in, You're finding more are suffering from like panic attacks. They're not used to being in crowds. Anxiety, severe anxiety issues. They're just not being used to going out. So there's more attention, more time is spent by your trained paramedic stewards to look after kids who, maybe they've had a bit too much to drink, but in a lot of the cases they don't. They've just, they freak out. They just get suddenly get a panic attack.
So how do you deal with it? You just get them to sit down?
Yeah, sit down. You can't calm them down. There's always usually an underlying issue, but there's been an awful lot of mental health problems more getting identified. Say like the Cat House, it's a very, very busy club. That's bucking the trend in say Glasgow, but it's the demographic. It's young kids, gothic rockers, punks. A lot of them tattoos. They're just a different type of kid, and they love their music. Music lovers, rock fans, and stuff like that. And we've just seen a massive rise in. Halfway through the night of kids coming in and needing help, They're suddenly getting a wee bit freaked out, and that's with COVID, because they were locked up. Remember in COVID, you weren't allowed to go anywhere, you weren't meeting your friends, you weren't doing what you normally do as a kid, so there's been that effect, and it's...
I do know that whether it's in Glasgow or in London or anything, there has definitely been a change towards it. I know there's a town near me called Guildford, and I think they have an issue there. What used to be an explosive nightlife scene, basically, the guys who run the nightclubs there are finding it very hard. Right, so it's not often I get the ability to talk to somebody about the politics of Scotland, but I did see a picture of Sturgeon the other day, and she looked absolutely terrible. She piled on weight.
Not looking good,
and I just wonder, after all, she was such a dominant force in Scottish politics, and now she looks like like somebody who has lost an empire but can't find a cause.
Yeah.
Has she a chance at all of coming back into politics?
Not a hope in hell.
Oh,
not a
right.
hope in hell. No chance. There's not a day goes by which is not in the paper for something. Self-promotion, obviously, with her book and her tours, but every turn she's getting brought down. She's just, recently, turned the tables on John Swinney, the First Minister, who, since all the allegations, through all her whole tenure, was her most loyal supporter, and even with the Murrell allegation, with the Murrell crime, and again sticking up for them, sticking up for her and the husband, and just there in her memoirs, she's slagged him, basically saying that he's not done a good job as a First Minister, no big vision, no big ideas, and so that's the backlash, and that's going to be huge.
So the interesting aspect here is if she played her cards right, the way it normally works in politics is you've been the leader, right, the senior minister, and then you become chancellor somewhere, or you become a head of some
head of industry,
some NGO or some charity or something. None of that is possible. Her legacy is going to be, I was a powerful politician. I married somebody who was a thief, claimed I didn't know that there was a 30-foot kind of caravan on my mother-in-law's drive for about 18 months, 2 years. And actually, nobody wants to take the risk on me. She will be challenged to make money.
Well, see, this is a strange thing. I just sort of half agree with you there, because she's still got one of the most loyal fan bases you could ever imagine in Scotland. I mean, amongst the core SNP voters, they will not hear a bad word said about it. Even when senior people like, Joanna Cherry, QC, a big SNP stalwart, says, oh, she was terrible, or she was a liar, or a thief, and all this. And even slagging John Swinney, they're still supporting her. So she still gets onto these book tours, and her support for the gender debate, the troll trans debate. She was
Well,
right
why- in
up
that
there
case,
on
why
that. That was proved to be one of the most divisive, polarising issues in Scottish politics, and still is. But underneath that, our legacy is mince. It's absolutely been destroyed, and the only person that doesn't know that at the moment seems to be Nicola Sturgeon.
Right. Well, do you know what she should do? She should start her own YouTube channel.
Well, I wouldn't put it past her.
No, because that way she can appeal directly to her followers, and actually, depending on what kind of audience she generates, and she would have an audience.
This is what we did this with Mike, didn't we?
Yeah.
So and it went from strength to strength.
Yeah.
But she is poison, though. I do not see that happening for her. Maybe somebody will set it up. I don't see it being a huge ratings winner. The support.
But she
is
does
there.
She does represent certain people's views. I mean,
yes, without a doubt. She is meant to be at the forefront of the independence debate. And she's now slagged John Swinney, saying that you've had no big ideas. But every year since she came into power, since Alex Salmond, which we'll come to in a second, she has promised a referendum, promised the never-endum, that's went on and on and on. And bear in mind, I used to be a supporter of the SNP, so was like, what, 2014, how did we vote, how did the vote go against us? Fair enough, move on, but every year promised it and never delivered. So she's never delivered on education when she said she was going to sort. She never delivered on, the ferries, my God, public transport, absolute disgrace, never delivered. Education, failed attainment gaps, every year. And the big thing that Scottish nationalists want is independence. Never came close to it.
Okay, can I ask you about that then? Do you believe, I would have thought right now, that if they went for a vote now, it would probably go to independence, wouldn't it?
No.
Oh, you don't think so?
I don't think so. They talked to their own room. It's like, I remember 2014, we believed, and I'm saying we back then because I was a member, that there was big, huge parades in the street. George Square was full of saltines. You thought, we're winning this, we're winning this.
We're going to do this, yeah.
And came to the vote. We lost massively. I think it was 47% or something in 53 or so, it was 46%. But we lost massively because, and the reason was the silent majority were there. There was no answers for, pensions, for the start, no answers in currency. Yeah. Where was the money going to come from? And that was the feelings of Alex Salmond's tenure. We couldn't answer the question, even currency, what currency we were going to use, and of course we would say the pound. Down here they would go, aye, will you? That'll be right. And, and then we're going to go into Europe. And all the time the Spanish are going, no, you're not. You're not. So these arguments would come to the fore again. Right. People want security, you know that. We just listened to the debate there. We're not going to get much security here. But the ideology is there, but the actual, I could be here all day with some fervent gnats, and they'll say, rubbish. But look at the oil. Look at the oil industry. It was Scotland's oil, remember that? Oh, it's Scotland's oil.
But it is an amazing point that you made there. But Aberdeen, unbelievably, has gone from a great, successful, explosive economic city to actually being so bad they've elected the Conservatives.
Well, listen,
I mean, seriously.
Well, Stephen Flynn and all that still up there, but they've still got a nationalist vote.
But it's a strange
absolutely
joke.
Absolutely joke. 1 in 6 jobs are dependent on oil in Aberdeen. They're losing shitloads of jobs now. Thousands. We're talking about the harm, the economic vandalism that's been carried out in that sector.
Why do they do
Because they're lunatics. Look, why? They believe that windmills and everything else is going to power the country. It doesn't. And we buy oil. from Norway. We now buy oil from Norway. The whole UK does.
Yeah.
And when Burnham says, "Oh, we're going to open up have a look at opening up right." Whether he does or he doesn't, the Nats then turned around and said, "Oh, that's great because the economy is getting harmed." They're the ones that had the presumption against new drilling licenses and have refused to open up the ones reopen up the ones that are there. And no wonder BP are saying, I've had enough of this, I'm out.
Did you know that was a shocking moment? The BP CEO turns around
terrible.
and said these assets would be better in another company's environment. They're British Petroleum, and yet they don't want to hold on to a British asset because they are sick to the back teeth of paying 78% tax, which is...
And there's going to be another windfall, what do you call it?
Well, it's the same with banking. It's the same with banking.
Well, they're going to hit the banks.
So the lady from Citibank, clever as you like, Scottish lady, right? Probably got the brain the size of a planet. If you run an American bank...
much like myself.
There is that. There is a similarity. You run an American bank, I can tell you right now, you didn't get there by luck.
No, you
right?
don't.
You run Citibank, you are as clever can be. Yeah, you're lucky that you print your own banknotes, but beyond that, right, you're
not worth anything.
When she turns round and says you pay more, we are paying too much tax. You're paying more than Dublin. You're paying more than Paris. You're paying more than Germany. Take that on board. For God's sake, allow companies to make their money. Okay, have a minute kind of penalty for either oil or banking, but make it minute. Let them invest their money. Let them buy companies. Let them borrow more money because their balance sheet is stronger. Just leave capitalism alone, and we'll be all right. So,
but they're ideologically opposed to capitalism. They're more left.
Scotland?
They're more left. The SNP are now more left than Labour.
Really?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And they tax more.
So what? Yeah. Why do you guys vote for it? And you don't. I know you don't. But why on earth do you? Why do you vote for it? Do you see?
You know what? I think some of them it's just like F you England or F you. They've still got that stupid. And but for a lot of the vote, they don't get hit by the taxes.
Yeah. In this country, it's 50-50 now.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't get hit with the taxes. Yeah. They get free bus travel. They get free prescriptions. They get, all this free stuff.
Right. Well,
so they don't want to look at the big picture.
This was Damien's point. That at the end of the day, one day, somebody's going to have to say, actually, Kelv, Donald, Damien, everybody, you're gonna have to pay for your prescription.
You're already doing that. If you're on pension, you're getting whacked with your pension. You're getting whacked with if you don't even leave your house to your kids, that's going to get.
Can I ask you this?
Totally
would there be riots in Scotland if, for instance, a Westminster-based government said, right, we're going to do something, right, and take the Damien approach? It's 20%, by the way, across the board. It'd be like Greece of what? How long ago was Greece? 20 years ago?
Yeah, 20 years.
Yeah, I remember that.
The whole thing, by the way, unemployment went through the roof, everything went up. And
they came through the other side. Much as we shout and we scream and we bawl, I don't think so. Remember the poll tax? Back in that was only, we got that first.
Yeah.
So we moaning, there was demonstrations, there was marches against it, Tommy Sheridan leaving from the front at that point. And but no change. It didn't really matter. England, one big march through London, changed Thatcher at that point. The place rioted. I mean, it really kicked off, and that's when I think the poll tax, the community charge, changed at that point. So we're not going to do that. I mean, there's been plenty of opportunity. I don't see the nationalists, riot in the street because they don't believe that. That's for the far right to do, to go and demonstrate. They're the bad boys, but we'll just moan. we'll just, that's terrible. Or we'll just disagree. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. You know, it's like Nicola Sturgeon, Nicolia. You know, I mean, she's saying it all the time. No, no, he didn't. What camper van? Where? What? How? Where?
That must be the biggest laugh in history. A 30-foot camper van is on your mother-in-law's drive.
Where?
And she said she never saw it. Do you know, when you hear that, you just say, I'm very sorry, Donald, we've got somebody else wanting to fight their way in. Can I just say, what bloody interesting discussion that was.
Yes, well, we'll have more, I hope.
We will have
yes.
more. And the fact that Donald owns 30% of the company, we just...
Yeah, we'll definitely have more.
In fact,
get your numbers up, Kelvin. Come on.
We're now pleased to announce the Donald McLeod show. Right, okay, fine. Thank you very much, Donald.
Yeah, big man.
Nice to meet you, man. Okay, right, good stuff. The sturgeon thing, the fact she can't get a job in Scotland, she should definitely do this for a living. She should just appeal narrowly to her SDP fan base, do it a 1-hour show every day, thoroughly disciplined. You'd make your money. Yeah, replace me. Hey, hello, it's Nicolai. Hey, right, coming up now, we're going to take the news next or go straight to George? The news. Okay, fine. It's going for the news, but we've got a fantastic guy coming up right now. Councillor George Madgwick. He's a Reform councillor for Portsmouth, who was the first person to disclose that I think somebody at a care home got fed dog food instead of their, what I hope was their traditional meal. It was an absolute shocker. Thanks to George, it became a national story, and he's come on to talk to us about it. So that's after the news. Thank you.
I'm Edward Hughes. A body has been recovered in the search for a 13-year-old boy who got into difficulty while swimming off Hornsea on the East Yorkshire coast. Police say the death is not being treated as suspicious. Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank have welcomed their third child, a baby girl born in Lisbon, Portugal. Britain is heading for what could be its worst cereal harvest in 4 decades after the driest July on record in England and Wales, with farmers warning of major crop losses from prolonged drought and heat. Politically, Reform UK has regained a poll lead over Labour, amid talk that any early burn and bounce under the new Prime Minister may already be fading. Laters, tigers.
Yeah, hi there, Kelvin MacKenzie. Look, we've got coming up now George Madgwick. Now, George is sits there and fights for everybody as a councillor at Portsmouth City Council. He is the city's first Reform councillor, but he was also the guy that I think gave publicity to, in any event, to the fact that dog food was served up to a care home resident by, I do hope it was by error and not by some cost cutting by some idiot Labour or Lib Dem councillor. Welcome, George.
Good morning.
Hello, man. It would probably be helpful if I actually listened to what you were saying, so you excuse me while I put this on. Yeah,
sure.
Hi there.
So basically what happened was that we were highlighted to a report that had gone through, and we were given this by the daughter of a lady that went through the most horrific care in the care system, especially towards the end of her life. Unfortunately, the lady's now passed, but in her final few months, it was truly horrific. And obviously the biggest story that broke out of yesterday, you're absolutely right, is the fact that she was fed dog food by one of the care staff prior to her passing. And in this particular instance, there was 2 care staff that were going in to look after her. One of the care staff, who I will add, because it is relevant, is a foreign-born national who was on a skilled work sponsorship from the company, who were sponsoring skilled workers back in 23, 24 and 25. And they got a packet out of the freezer that, by the way, was clearly labelled as dog food. It said clearly on the packet it was dog food. She microwaved that meal and fed 3 spoonfuls of that food to the lady prior to the other carer, who was English and obviously spoke English, noticing the dog food packet on the side and immediately stopped her. The more concerning point is that, well, there's a number of concerning points actually throughout this story. First of all, that's one of 20 listed incidences that happened. It's by far the most shocking, but there's also some really other depressing instances. But also, if you can't read dog packaging, how are you meant to read prescriptions, or how are you meant to read medical records? It's not appropriate. Following on from that, Kelvin, they then took a week to report it to their senior manager in person. They chose not to.
Why?
Maybe through fear. They said that they emailed in, but they're in the report. There's no proof of that. They said they emailed and they didn't get a response. They actually wrote down, following this, may I add, as well, and this is why I think that necessarily wasn't true. Following that, they wrote down in the report that they fed her a lamb dinner. So they did write that in after they knew about the dog food, and following them to highlighting it to a senior manager who obviously went into the property and removed all further dog food. It took a further 2 weeks to notify the family of this, which I think is even more shocking, really. But as I say, this is one of many incidences, and I'm happy to go through a few others if you'd like to hear them.
I would. I'd love to hear them. Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. So I think, first of all and foremost, she was in her own property. I think that's the key point, and she had multiple carers go in per day. This was a council contract, a Portsmouth City Council contract that was issued to a third-party company, which, by the way, also didn't go into special measures. The CQC, the Care Quality Commission, didn't put this company into special measures until a year after the first report, which I think is also damning.
Shocking.
But this report, and this has been found, it's been investigated, and it's been publicly published. So this is not speculation or opinion. She was left in darkness overnight, despite on our record it saying that she feared the darkness. There was occasions they left her in darkness overnight. They left her wet in her bed overnight on a number of occasions. There's been filming footage of her being force-fed, not being fed at all, having prolonged periods of isolation. Her DNR certificate, Do Not Resuscitate certificate, was screwed up in a cupboard. There was failure to record some of the insights. There was failure to provide inadequate food. In one instance, it said that there was a number of instances of stale or inedible food, lack of mobility support. One of the other ones I'll highlight just before we go back to the conversation is the fact that the daughter put a camera in the room, and they noticed that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the carer didn't attend. So after work, she decided to go into the house and sit with her mother and care for her mother. It was then at 7:30 that a carer then following turned up, and she explained the process, etc., etc. When she got the care record the following week, the care record was actually filled in to say that the care person had arrived at 4 o'clock, not knowing that the daughter had been there all along. And that leads them to believe that they were also falsifying documentation. So the dog food is the tip of the iceberg, but it's a much harrowing, shocking story.
Do you know what, George? I can only imagine. First of all, thank you very much indeed for telling the viewers that. I can only imagine that this is just the tip of the iceberg. That we happen to know, because first of all, you're bright and clearly clued up on the way that life really works, as distinct from the way the council would have you believe it worked. And that this conversation might be being able to be had all over the country. I'm particularly interested in the idiot. And I don't really blame this idiot for coming over here and getting work and being able to fool everybody that they're bright. But the idea I presume it's a he, is it? He or a she?
I believe it's a she, yeah.
Yeah. She couldn't read the word dog food because it's not her language. What language is she strong in?
I'm not entirely aware, but I think it does open up the wider conversation, Kelvin, of our entire national process, because why is there not a process where a simple language test is done to make sure that people can read labelling, subscriptions and stuff? And I think this is the wider story here, because you're right, this is probably happening everywhere, not necessarily the dog food, I should hope, but certainly the lack of proper care. And that was my greater concern in all this, is that if this particular person has been able to slip through the net, how many more have slipped through the net nationwide? How many more people are going into care facilities today, this very day, and not being able to read the care record accurately, not being able to read the subscription advice, not offering the proper care because they simply cannot read English, and that is not right.
That is not right. So you raise these points, right? Portsmouth, Labour or Lib Dem? Which is
Liberal Democrat.
Okay, so they are horrendous. They've decided going left is the only way to get elected. So they pretend to be one thing and actually are something really quite awful. I tell you a story. Round my way, I live in Weybridge, and therefore my council is Elmbridge. Basically Lib Dem, really. The mayor, Lib Dem, Mayor Swalesby, she goes to a restaurant which is kind of half in the Thames. It's quite a good little idea. And she sees the owner there. She sees the owner, and she points at the St. George's flag and says, basically, why have that up? You know, some people get offended by this. She's the mayor, right? Offended by the St. George's flag at a restaurant. Honestly, how on earth these people are allowed to conduct themselves politically? But let's talk about Portsmouth. When you raise all this, right, so you're a bright guy, you know which way's up. You say this has happened, that's happened, the other's happened. What are you doing about it? What do these dolts say to you?
Well, I think it's important to note that the daughter, I won't name her name because the newspaper hasn't named her name, but the daughter specifically, she'd been fighting this for some time. She had raised concerns to the council back in 2024. So this goes all the way back to 2024. And, you know, they launched an investigation. They did an internal investigation. And I hear all this stuff all the time. It's so frustrating, you know, and it took them almost a year to do a thorough investigation between the different departments. They obviously, this wasn't national news at the time. It wasn't public knowledge. It wasn't something that any of us knew about. But she had been fighting behind the scenes daily to try and get the right justice for her mother. Now, although she knew this care was poor, basically almost the same week that she decided to change care providers, because say this was a third-party care contractor that was contracted by the council. But when she decided to change the care, unfortunately, her mother went into her final stages of her life. So they decided not to. But she had been fighting onwards since then, and as I say, these reports are purely just coming out now. One of the biggest concerns for me, as I said earlier in my monologue there, is that the CQC, the Care Quality Commission, were aware of this. You know, the first reports were in the middle of 2024, and it was May 2025 before the CQC put this company into special measures. And it was after that that the council cancelled the contract with the care provider. So they were aware that this care provider was providing potentially very inadequate care. They had the proof of this, obviously, needless to say, they were provided the proof of this by the family. They had the reports that stated about the dog food. The care workers admitted that. But yet they were still allowing people to go into other care homes and go into other people's homes to provide this care. It's terribly shocking. And what I found, I don't know if you've read the article, Kelvin, but what I found really disappointing, actually, is that they have been offered, based on recommendation, may I add, a measly £1,000 in compensation as a symbolic gesture. That was the quote, symbolic gesture. And I just think that that's so wholly unacceptable. The family haven't yet accepted any money, and I really hope they don't, and they fight for more, because I think that this incident is shocking, and the only way that the sector, the councils and the private sector are going to learn is by having their wallets hit, because, you know, a simple apology is unacceptable in this case.
Well, I wouldn't do it that way around, you see. I come from rather more vile business operation. What I would do if I was the council, I wouldn't pay them, right? I would have withheld about 3 or 4 months of the money, right? And just said that's the end of that, right? And I realised lots of other people get suffered like that, and say I'm not paying you. And by the way, we're going to give it to this lady's family if that was an idea. Yeah, and I totally get that. But the thing I don't understand is why on earth we have to import people from anywhere to do that kind of job. Do you know what? I would not allow people to be unemployed, right? I would not allow people to be unemployed and at the same time having to import people from God knows where who can't speak the language, who could make the most disastrous of mistakes without any penalty in our country, right? When there's somebody walking around perfectly all right saying, well, I'm looking for something as an influencer, you know what I mean? If you've got an influencer job down here, i.e. a job that doesn't involve working intellect, or all it involves is having your nails painted every day different colours and hoping to make 10 grand a minute. I honestly, George, look, can I make a suggestion to you? That
Sure.
I don't know whether you're bright or you're not bright. You feel very bright to me. Do you work? You have to work as well as being a councillor, don't you?
I do, yes.
Yeah, fine. Are there many other potential reform candidates within Portsmouth? Is there a chance? How many are there other reform councillors, or are you the only one?
I mean, so we're the leaders of the opposition in Portsmouth, and local government reorganisation, which, to be fair, I'm not a fan of local government reorganisation, but local government reorganisation that we're going through next year combines us with Havant, Gosport and Fareham Council, at which point, yes, absolutely, we will have a monumental chance of taking control of this new local government reorganisation shadow authority next May. Havant is a very strong reform area, Gosport is a very strong reform area, and it's very likely we'll take control of this council. And we need to, because you've probably seen yourself, Kelvin, there's been multiple stories over the last year about Portsmouth City Council and the way it's operated. You know, we were the council that took down the flag the day before England's semi-final match of the World Cup. We're also the council last year, you may remember, that was providing leisure cards free of charge to migrants that were living in our hotel, where they could get free coffees and 40% discount off of kayak lessons. You know, we have had a horrendous amount of stories come out about our council over the last year, some of them absolutely shockingly shameful, and we need to take a real common sense approach and put party politics aside. We just need some people that are in that room, are at the top table, that can start holding officers and holding this council to account, because the stories coming out of it are just wildly unacceptable, and it needs to change.
Well, let's just agree that if you're 21 and you're fit, or you're 18 and you're 21 and you're fit, and you do that kind of job, right, and you're English, right, or British, you're going to do it. And we are not going to import people from Somalia who can't even speak the language to care for our own people. They're our own people. We should want to have our own people care for our own people. We really reached the point where literally, people keep complaining about NEETs, 1 million NEETs. I'd like to see those 1 million NEETs, actually. I'd like to line the whole bloody lot of them up. And I'd like to ask them individually why you haven't got work, okay? And then I point out the Portsmouth City Council story.
I think also, you know, you've got to remember this is just one council contractor, and in this in 23-24 they employed 44 skilled workers on the sponsorship program. I mean, skilled workers. I mean, on the sponsorship program. In 24-25 they had requested 80 of these people. This is one company, and as I said, and we highlighted at the very start of this conversation, and we need to keep highlighting this as much as we talk about it, is what rigorous testing is done by the adult social care sector that looks at these 44 skilled workers and says, right, you can read prescriptions, you can provide, you can determine what is human food packaging and dog food packaging. I mean, that should be the simplest level of comprehension when you're given the responsibility to care for the most vulnerable people in our society that rely on you. And I think we need to do a wider review of this nationally, because this is we know, Kelvin, this is not just happening to this lady. This hadn't just happened to this lady. This is probably happening right now as we speak to somebody in the country. And we've all got people that were either formerly in adult social care, that are currently in adult social care, or potentially going towards the way of going into adult social care. And this affects us all. And we do not know what's happening with our loved ones when they are in care. And that's unacceptable.
George, I've really enjoyed this conversation. If you've got other issues that you feel would have both local and national effect, just come back, speak to Charlotte, and come on and make your points. That's what we need.
Sure.
Thank you very much indeed. That's
Thank you.
George Madgwick, who actually has been shown the spotlight on the fact that an old deer, probably not far away by the sound of it from passing on, was fed dog food by somebody that was brought into this country as under skilled worker visa. That skilled worker visa did not cover the fact that she couldn't understand English, and therefore didn't understand that when it had the words dog food written on it, it meant dog food. And it was given to this old dear. You know, and the point that councillor makes is correct, isn't it, of course? That what else didn't they understand? about when they were to be fed drugs. What did the drugs say? When should they? What time should they be given? What food can they not be given with? You know, how can she be made comfortable? It is unbelievable. We don't need to hand out skilled worker visas when we have 1 million NEETs sitting around moaning all day long on television about they can't find work. There is the work. What they don't like is they don't like the work that's offered to them. So what do? We whistle down a mine in Somalia or somewhere in the Middle East or somewhere and bring over some people. That is not the future of our country. Shall we go to the news? And then after the news, we have an old friend who has returned, not with good news.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. A body has been recovered in the search for a 13-year-old boy who got into difficulty while swimming off Hornsea on the East Yorkshire coast. Police say the death is not being treated as suspicious. Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank have welcomed their third child, a baby girl born in Lisbon, Portugal. Britain is heading for what could be its worst cereal harvest in 4 decades after the driest July on record in England and Wales, with farmers warning of major crop losses from prolonged drought and heat. Politically, Reform UK has regained a poll lead over Labour, amid talk that any early burn and bounce under the new Prime Minister may already be fading. Laters, tigers.
Yeah, hi there, Kelvin MacKenzie again. I've got Alistair Hilton here now. Now, Alistair kind of is our kind of our roving reporter across London, often bringing in tidbits of astonishing things that are happening. Normally, he's in the Mike Graham camp. There's never a glass of beer far from his reporting techniques. But we have an important one today because yesterday, in the middle of Covent Garden, there was an attack by a lady who was clearly not well and was trying to make other people even more unwell by knifing them. Alistair, what do you make? Now, the numbers I see for London indicate that violence is not as high as it used to be. I put it that way round rather than saying that, you know, that they've cracked it.
I think it's very difficult. I think comparing crime figures, you sort of go down this massive rabbit hole of was it worse in those days, these days, or whatever. Yeah, in the 80s, you know, I was walking around London and yeah, you could get beaten up coming out of a nightclub or whatever sort of thing. So it wasn't that there was no crime. I think what you have got now it always felt in those days like the government were on your side, the police were on your side, and you know, we're all working to try and make Britain a better place, if you like. It sort of feels now like you are on your own, really. You know, the police aren't really there to support you, you know, when you've had your phone nicked.
I mean, let's talk about that. Is that really fair? I always feel rejuvenated if I see a couple of coppers. I'd love to see a couple of coppers walking down Weybridge High Street. I'll be a long time dead before that happens. I don't know why. They simply don't walk down, quote, safe areas. So I feel good about them. Are you saying that there is another feeling now that actually, although it's good to see them, actually if push came to shove, they're just as likely to arrest you as help you?
I've never been one of these that thinks, oh, I want to see a Bobby on the beat. I want to see police arresting bad people. That's what I want to see. Right. But my own experiences are that when I had my phone nicked, and everybody's got a tracker on their phone, or most people have, the police went, yeah, interesting, thanks. But when I said it's at this address, and they went, yeah, there's nothing we can do.
How far away was that from?
That was a few miles away from where I was. It was, you know, an address in Hanger Lane. Bang, there's the address. No, we can't do anything about your phone, but there's my phone. Yeah, but we can't. And I've heard that story repeated again and again and again. I've tweeted about it and everybody's gone, that happened to me. I told them it was at number 4 Acacia Avenue and they said, we can't do anything.
So, okay, let's take it on. You are a clever guy. You say, right, I am going round to 27 Hanger Lane and I am going there with a couple of mates of mine. And what we're going to do is we're going to knock on the door and say, you've got my phone in there. and then if there's any kind of suggestion, then I'm going to go into the house and I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
Is that really a runner?
And, well, one, I wouldn't recommend you do that.
No,
because
no.
my guess is these people that have just mugged you for your phone, you know, the guy that mugged me for my phone, I had sort of cracked ribs and all the rest of it. I don't yeah.
Did you?
Yeah,
Well,
and
no,
that was
right,
in,
I don't know the story. So
well,
you
that
tell
was
me the
in
story.
that was in Little Venice in London, which is a a beautiful area. Well, it's sort of a beautiful area, and it's not a beautiful area. So, amazing place, very very rich people and people that aren't very rich.
Correct.
Walking down the street, and I never ever hold my phone to my ear, never, because it's too dangerous. But anyway, on this occasion, a friend rang, held it to my ear, was walking back. It was only 6 in the evening and whatever, and then literally bang.
What happened?
Somebody on an electric bike, it's always an electric bike, smashed me. I had held my phone stupidly and smashed into the ground, basically.
So they
they came
you,
from behind.
What, they actually physically hit you with the bike?
Yeah, like big
This
time.
then led to that?
Well, that, I kept hold of my phone, was smashed, and sort of pulled harder into the ground, if you like. So, you know, had that, and off he went, you know.
He then grabbed it off you?
He's got the phone. Literally, he then hesitated because he wanted to have a good look at, you know, me sprawled like an idiot on the floor sort of thing. Off he went, called the police. They're like, yeah, sure, whatevs.
Right,
and then
hold on one second, hold on one second. This is not just a phone grab, is it? This is with violence.
Yes.
Okay? This is quite a serious, to my mind, right? There are idiot magistrates out there. I don't imagine it go much further. Could do, right? After all, the idiot magistrate who said to that woman in her 80s, we're going to ban you just because you've been over the top with 20 miles an hour. There are idiots sitting on these benches, right? That's quite a serious thing. That guy could get a couple of years for that. He could get a year, 18 months anyway. That's a serious thing. How ill were you with it?
Well, it cracked a few of my ribs.
Well, that's enough. That's painful.
Yeah, it was blooming painful. But, you know, I then had an iPad or whatever, so tracked my phone. So I rang the police, you know, whatever. Then I realised I could track my phone. So I tracked my phone, I rang them back, and I said, look, reported this earlier. This is where the phone is. No, we can't do anything. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do anything? No, we can't do anything. But if you then suggest that you go round there, I can promise you the police would be round instantly. Now, there's something wrong with that, and that's not just me saying it. You know, I've tweeted about the incident at the time, and hundreds, thousands of people, whatever, came back to me and went, yeah, happened to me. Yeah, I told them where it was. Yeah, that happened. So these are not, there's 70,000 phones nicked every year in London. 70,000 phones a year. And so they're people, everything, your whole life is on your phone. But it's actually a traumatic experience. I'm not saying everybody ends up injured, but I guarantee a lot of them are, and I guarantee a lot of people are shaken up by having their phone smashed out of their hand. By a guy.
I would be.
And it's always a guy on an electric bike. So, you know, the police, of course they can't stop all crime, but I see electric bikes doing insane speeds all over London, down Oxford Street, everything.
And in fact, they like doing it as well.
Yeah, and they like doing it. So hang on, why aren't the police at either end and go, right, we'll have that bike. The bike's illegal. The bike is illegal, so they can seize it. So why aren't they? Because those bikes are then used in crime, 70,000 times a year.
You're right, a very good point. But the reason, as you well know, is we have a mayor. Okay, so the Metropolitan Commissioner answers to the mayor. Much more than he answers to the Home Secretary. For things to remain peaceful, right? Because the Metropolitan Commissioner can always be at war with that mayor, and particularly with this mayor, and likely with every mayor for as far as the eye can see. So for an easy life, he doesn't do what you do, because the mayor would say, you appear to be targeting people of colour. We can't have that. I'm trying to get elected, and you're trying to round them all up. It's a very difficult area we now have in our country.
You know, it is a thing. You've got a lot of the sort of police on the beat, if you want to call it that, who great people trying to do a great job. But you've got the management of them, call it, you know, however high up the management chain, who are horrendous, and they are politicians more than they are policemen. The higher up they get, so guy, as you say, answering to the mayor. He's a politician to all intents and purposes,
He is.
more than he is a policeman. And so that's wrong that you aren't targeting people, and I believe you're right. I believe you're absolutely spot on. I think these people aren't targeted because any normal person would go, well, why can't you stop all electric bikes? I mean, the illegal ones, not the legal. The ones that do 30 miles an hour down Oxford Street on the pavement. Why can't you take those off? Because they're the ones stealing people's phones.
Those bikes are heavy. I wouldn't like to bet. Could somebody look up for me online on the phone how heavy an electric bike is? I suspect there'd probably be something like 40 kilos or 35.
I would say they're probably a bit more than that. If one of those hit you at 30, you're in big trouble.
Well, you're dead, actually. Yeah. I read about some old dear, I think, in North London or somewhere. I agree. Mind you, get hit by 30 miles an hour by a bike, an ordinary bike, you're in big trouble, aren't
absolutely, but an ordinary bike you can't pedal that fast. So the point is these bikes are illegal. So the police have every right to take them off, stop them, take them off them. And what you would see instantly, if you spent a week taking every illegal bike off every person riding down Oxford Street or around central London, you would 100% see phone crime go down massively.
Yeah.
You would 100% see all sorts of crime go down massively because it's proved time and time again the people that commit all the crimes are a tiny number of people comparatively.
Correct. Yeah.
So you get rid of that tiny number and suddenly everybody's life is better. So why not do that? It's a very simple thing to do.
You know why? Because this is not strangely, it appears not to be a white crime. It appears to be a black crime. I don't know what the numbers are, but the number of people I've seen actually appeared in court, they come from one section of our society. And I wonder whether the mayor feels inclined to attack what is his voter base.
Well, if the mayor thinks that London's such a safe place, why does he ride around in an armour-plated Range Rover with several bodyguards? I don't have that luxury. Most people don't have that luxury. So, yeah, London's a blooming safe place for Sadiq Khan because you can't get to him. Not that I want to, but you can't get to him.
Nobody wants to get to the mayor.
Nobody wants to. But the point is, if it's safe, have a wander around. Get rid of the Range Rover, get rid of your protection guys, and see what happens.
That would be a very, very strange feeling that if you were on the tube and you happened to be sitting next to Mayor Khan, I would have thought that was quite a difficult thing. I mean, I find the idea that Mayor Khan may well run for a fourth time.
Oh, I think he'll keep going and going and going. Why wouldn't you? People in power never give up power until they have to. Until it's taken off them, nobody in power goes, no, I don't want that anymore.
Well, how about this then? On the be careful what you wish for. There is no doubt that in political office, the left are becoming more powerful, literally by the hour. People have decided that actually they've had a good look at the system and they prefer the one where they don't have to go to work and they do like to receive benefits of a substantial kind, and that the safety net is becoming stronger and more lucrative. Supposing you got an even further left mayor than Khan. After all, Khan, when he first started out, actually was on the right of the Labour Party. He is only moved, I think, in order to satisfy political demands at County Hall, right? So what happens, we go even further left and we end up with somebody like the New York mayor who starts believing that, that crime is part, and I saw that alluded to by that Peckham MP who's now the energy minister. She alluded to the fact that petrol was being stolen in record numbers, right, was a sign, well, people are hard up. Really? Is that the answer? On that, I was really appalled by that argument.
I think Sadiq Khan and the mayor of New York are probably similar-ish people, really. I think the whole of the people in charge of various institutions have gone left, because, people would consider me far right, and I hate that expression, but if you went back 20 years, you consider me central, centre. You wouldn't consider any views I have far right at all in 20 years. So if I haven't changed, the people in charge must have changed, and they've changed to the left. And so what happens is, once you've sort of got some control of a council or a government or whatever, you surround yourself with more people who agree with what you do.
Well, it happens in television. I can absolutely tell you that. If I appear on mainstream television, which, by the way, you'll be probably pleased to hear, I am not invited to go on mainstream television anymore, is I ameliorated my views. I was a fool. I didn't realise, I did realise I was doing it. I didn't want to offend the crowd, be truthful. And actually I was a fool. I should have been bolder, but also I was employed by mainstream media and they wouldn't like it.
And that's the point. People, so many people in this country, you've got a few people that speak up about issues like J.K. Rowling and being a prime example. Because she's in a position where you can't sack her, because she's in a position where she doesn't have to worry about money. So she can say, I believe this. Wonderful, fantastic. I agree with, probably most things she says. But most people have a boss. And if you say it, somebody from the Green Party will alert the police, for instance, somebody from this, and you're out of a job. And you're certainly told you can't mention that again.
Well, without going into the name, somebody who comes on here, by the way, enormously bright, I'm not going to say male or female, right? Not androgynous, I know that, has just been suspended from their job because of their views that white people or indigenous people should receive work ahead of bringing in people.
I think on a lot of topics, whether a man can be a woman, no they can't, lots of topics, I think there's a massive number of people in this country who keep their head down. They'll like your tweet, great, and you get DMs from going, I totally agree with you, Alistair. Or even email me and go, I totally agree with you, but I can't say anything because blah, blah, blah.
Well, I'm amazed that they'll even like it, because the danger of liking it could be that if they come and if somebody decides to look at your tweets in relation to something that may have happened at work or something, right? You could find yourself, and do you know, as part of an employment tribunal issue?
I think everybody can sort of trust me that I'm certainly not going to, report anything or do anything in that respect. But I understand what you mean. But I think it's got to the point where you say something and you are jumped on. There's a lot of people of the far left, shall we call them, who don't want to just disagree with you, they want to crush you. They want you to lose your job, lose your livelihood, lose everything. They hate you and they want you destroyed. Whereas I might go, well, you're a bit of a nutter, I don't agree with you. They want to destroy you and every part of you.
Yeah, no, the thing that I most enjoy, I know I might be perverse in this way, is if I tweet something, there's a massive pile-on, right? And watching people getting violently angry, I sit there rolling up. The idea they're sitting there going...
But I have it, I'll say something, and somebody will go, oh, I hate you, Alistair, blah, 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 and I'll mute them. So I won't reply, I'll just mute them. And every now and then, they'll be following me, these people, on Twitter, following me. 3 months later, they'll go, oh, I hate, and it shouldn't pop up, but it pops up, and I go, you're still following me. You're still following me and you still hate me. Go away. Do something with your life.
I totally agree. Why do they have to do it? I wonder what kind of people that they are. Who was telling me? I think Andy. There was a guy who's the editor of News of the World. He ended up getting 18 months over some hacking thing or something. And he was sitting in a cafe, I think somewhere in Forest Hill. And he looked on his Twitter feed, and on it said on there that the bloke said that prick Andy is sitting behind me. right? He's sitting there going, no, yeah, that's right, that's me. Anyway, look, Alistair, thank you very much indeed. I enjoyed that chat, by the way. I much prefer the chat rather than just talking about the Covent Garden attack, which I think probably will turn out to be a lady not too well and wanted to make other people very, very ill. Okay, thank you very much indeed, Alistair. Always good to talk to you. In a while, we've got coming up an expert on radar. Now, radar is the official audience statistics of the radio industry. And we'll go to the news and then hopefully we'll come to Mr. Nigel Jacklin after that. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. A body has been recovered in the search for a 13-year-old boy who got into difficulty while swimming off Hornsea on the East Yorkshire coast. Police say the death is not being treated as suspicious. Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank have welcomed their third child, a baby girl born in Lisbon, Portugal. Britain is heading for what could be its worst cereal harvest in 4 decades after the driest July on record in England and Wales, with farmers warning of major crop losses from prolonged drought and heat. Politically, Reform UK has regained a poll lead over Labour, amid talk that any early burn and bounce under the new Prime Minister may already be fading. Laters, tigers.
Kind of him. Hi there. So due up in a minute is the radar guys. Now the reason the radar, which I explained, is the audience statistics measurements. It's like Barb. It's a ridiculous idea, by the way, totally absurd, where you have to give a tick to every 15 minutes of radio that you listen to. And you're supposed to do it contemporaneously. Well, that's very difficult if you're driving a car, and a most absurd way of doing it. But the reason they like it is both the radio station owners and the media buyers like it because it's a currency which they both believe in. I have no idea why they believe in it, but they do. There has been some good news actually for Mike Graham at UK Live. Mike, brilliant broadcaster for us between 7 and 10 a.m. He quit talk radio back at the turn of the year. And what's happened is talk radio's just announced their numbers, and their numbers are 21% down. Well, the good news is that those 21% have gone over to Mike Graham. The other good news, I thought, was GB News Radio. I mean, a most astonishing performance. Their weekly reach now is 731,000, and it's up 34% year on year, up 34%. Couple that with a huge jump in hours. Hours is the kind of, it's a bit technical, but it's the kind of trading currency of the radio business. They've gone through the roof as well. A really astonishing performance. But look, somebody who knows a lot more about it than me is Nigel Jacklin. Morning,
hey,
Nigel.
Good morning.
Hi. So I'm just explaining that GB News Radio has had an astonishing book in which their numbers are 34% up year on year, 721,000 weekly reach. Hours are off the dial. What's caused this explosion?
It must be that people want to watch it or listen to it, surely, isn't it? I mean, people have got plenty of choice. So clearly GB News is something that there are people that want to watch it and listen to it.
Yes, no, I totally agree with that. I thought that was astonishing. What were the other numbers that you saw that caught your eye from this morning's radars?
I've only really had a quick look, so I've not taken it in. But I think GB News has been going up for a while, both, and they've also been doing well on Barb. So, you know, both of the reporting services are doing well. I've not seen their UCOM figures. So there's different figures for radio, TV, and internet.
Okay. What about how does Global been doing, or Bauer, or any of the other big radio companies?
Sorry, I've not looked at the figures. I more know how it's made and what it's used for, and what seems to be the case to me is that so it's a fairly fragmented marketplace, but people are choosing more and more independent media. if you'd call GB News an independent media.
I would.
And so really, there's kind of this case for advertisers. So the reason why Radar exists is so that advertisers know who listens to what. So they can decide where to put their advertising. And some of them may be reluctant to try new vehicles, as you might have experienced in your career. GB News is not a new vehicle anymore, is it? It's been going, I don't know, 5 or 6 years?
5 years, yeah.
And it's had stats about it during all of that time. And so if you're a mainstream advertiser, it's a tried and tested vehicle now, isn't it? It's got viewers and listeners. So the more interesting question to me is why aren't advertisers using these media more? And actually, is there a case for, let's call it, a group of independent media to come together and demonstrate their audience?
Yes, right, that's a good point. Have you seen a decline in the BBC's total grip on...
I think there's a long-term trend in the decline of the BBC in various levels. And the government's proposals to encourage us to use so-called trusted sources, of which the BBC might be their favourite, I think will only encourage people to go independent more, or for more people to come together to get their stories out. Because, we're in an era where you can't stop people finding things out anymore.
Yes, no, that's a very good point. I think the whole thing will blow up against it, and actually, the idea that if it's a trusted source by the government, you can be damn sure that there is a huge percentage in this country who will view it as an untrusted source. So your view and expert view is that you are going to continue to see more outlets like UK Live or these kind of smaller independents who, thanks to YouTube, have made it possible to exist. After all, without YouTube, none of this could really happen. And that you'll see more advertising dollar going into YouTube?
Well, so let's break it down into bits. There are already loads of people broadcasting independently. So the question is whether people choose to listen to them or watch them. So therefore, if there are good people, they will get an audience. The next question is then whether advertisers choose to put their advertising money into them. So for GB News, for example, they do have a fair number of smaller advertisers, but seem to have found it more difficult to get the larger mainstream advertisers.
Yeah, true.
And they will base their decisions partly on the data, but also they've got all of these protocols and things. So there's a difference between saying we will advertise in something and we won't advertise in something. And actually news in general has a challenge because some advertisers prefer to avoid medium where their ad might be against a story about murders or deaths or bad things. And so therefore they block certain things. But really the GB News figures are such that the audience is of such a size that it merits inclusion on mainstream advertiser schedules. I suspect that the senior people at those kind of places get it and that they realize that people who are listening to us now and people who listen to or watch GB News are normal people who go on holiday and buy cars and things like that. But maybe if the media planners and buyers are younger, more junior people, urban younger people, that they see things differently and they don't kind of get the audience. But the audience is there, isn't it? That's what the figures say.
Oh, yeah, Nigel, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, look, I 100% get that. Can I just tell you, those media buyers are probably, living in London, probably lefty. They hate the idea that these people are, that these stations are successful, and so what you have to do is rely on YouTube, who don't take a view, they just have a look at your numbers and let you get on with it. Yeah, Nigel, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Now, we have some glamour come into the rather dull, smelly studio, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and explain what she's going to do, which is adding some fresh energy and certainly some fresh lipstick, right, to a very, so I'm very like to welcome. Now, you tell the audience who you are, what your background is, and what we can expect to be coming up.
So today, for the first time, I'm doing my first ever live show. I've done interviews before, you know, podcasts, that kind of thing, but I've never done
what about
live
the people
hosting.
who don't know who you are? So say who you are, and then we'll go.
Okay, so I'm Ellie Hodges, and I've been in
Not
the
related to Dan,
not related to Dan Hodges. Need to announce that because that's been going around Twitter recently. He's been claiming that we're related. We are not related.
Is that?
No.
Is this a joke?
No.
What's happening?
So I put out...
let me just tell you, I didn't know you were. I didn't think you were, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I saw something on Twitter yesterday saying from him that you were related. So you are related.
No.
We're not related.
That is, well, are you saying that tweet is not true?
He has since put out a tweet saying he knows how this place can get, and to clarify, we're not related, but he wishes me luck on my show today.
That is absolutely right. Look, it doesn't matter who you are. Everybody's got to have a mum and dad, haven't they?
Of course.
So if that is your dad, right, I disagree with him.
We don't mind that you're
But we like the fact that you are related, but we like the fact you're different.
We are not related, to clarify.
Are you not related?
More confusion here. I am not related to Dan Hodges.
Are you being serious?
100%. I am not related to
Well,
Dan
why
Hodges.
did he put out the tweet?
No. So I put out a tweet saying that I am going to be hosting UK Live today, and he then reposted it and put, great to see the family doing
I see.
well.
That's fine. Okay, fine. Well, let's that's great. I totally buy that. I think that's him being clever. Okay.
Then people actually did think we were related, and I had to clarify it again.
Okay, that's fair enough. So, what are the things that are annoying you and you suspect are going to annoy your viewers in your next hour? Very much look forward to it. I hope it's a big success for you. I'm sure it will be. So name me the 3 things that you're really going to punch home in this hour.
Well, I think that one of the main themes that I want to have in this show is it not just being a show talking about how bad everything is.
Oh, right.
I want to be optimistic, and I want to say, you know what, yes, we have serious issues in this country, and everyone watching this knows that. But let's talk about how we're actually going to fix them, not just talk about how bad everything is, because or else, I mean, if you spend your whole entire life on social media, you would think that this country is completely finished. And whilst there is issues, they can be fixed. And time again, this country has been through some awful periods where people thought that this country was over, and time again it rebuilt. And I really think that we can do that again, and I think we need some more optimism. Okay, fine. I'm massively in favour of the optimism. There has to be some substance to back up the optimism in the way that there has to be some substance to back up the pessimism. So what are the big issues that you'd like to talk about in the next hour? The issues that I like to talk about? Well, I mean, more generally, the issues that I like to talk about is education. I think that that's the biggest issue that this country faces at the moment. Do you think we're going down the right route or the wrong route? The wrong route. The state of our education system is not good at all, and that needs to be fixed. So that's something that I talk about a lot. But in terms of the show and what's coming up, I've got lots of guests. We've got Mark Littlewood joining me in the studio for the first half an hour. So you've gone down market. And then we've got Maeve Halligan, who's going to talk to us about the trans issues and about Labour's Women's Conference and how there's been some trade unions that have decided that they're going to lobby against that because it's not including trans women, i.e. men. And then we've also got Toby Young from the Free Speech Union. Oh, right. Well, that's good. We've got Adam Cherry from Guido Fawkes, and we also have Colin Sutton, who is now the Police and Crime Commissioner for Norfolk for Reform. So it should be really interesting. Got a lot coming up. I like that. I like that. Who do you kick off with? Mark.
Oh, right,
Mark in the studio.
And do you know what he's talking about, Mark?
Well, with Mark, I think we're just going to talk about kind of the top stories of the day, all the different things that are going on. We've got this Cambridge professor case.
Politically, where are you politically? Are you to the right of centre, the left of centre? Or?
I'd say I'm centre right.
Oh, you're centre right. Yeah. Okay, so you're conservative / reform, are you?
Yeah, I would say. But I mean, my values.
Did you go to
don't
uni?
change. No, I would never go to university.
So what age did you leave school? 18?
No, I left school 16. So I left early because I don't think that university is the right route for many people. I think that we've got all these degrees now, they're actually not worth your time, and I think that you can kind of work ways up yourself into getting into a profession, especially in terms of media, and I think that employers actually usually prefer that now. They like someone who hasn't got a degree because it's kind of weird now to not have a degree because everyone does. You know, when Tony Blair came in and he said I want 50% of people to go to university, it kind of took away the value of a degree because the majority of people can have one. You can get degrees in all sorts now, and I actually think if you don't go to university, you have a head start.
I definitely think you will get an interview, whereas if you put 2-1 Bristol or 2-1 or 2-1 Southampton, I wonder whether you just get rejected by some piece of AI.
Yeah.
It's a very, very strange world, that. So you leave school at 16.
Yeah.
And did you then go to work?
Yeah, I then got loads of, well, I mean, I worked
What kind of work? Did you do bar work or?
I had I had 3 part-time jobs in total, and they were all, 2 of them were at a pub, 1 of them was at a restaurant, and that's why I always talk about now how important part-time jobs are, because they really taught me skills that I still use today. You know, just simple things like, if you're late or if you do something wrong, that's it, your job's done. There's no second chances really, because when you're running a business, you don't have time for stuff like that. And I think that that gave me much more experience with the real world than having an assembly in school about, oh, these are the values that you need to take into the workplace. I think it's actually much better to just go in,
So you were fired, were you, for turning up
late? I
was
not fired.
Oh,
no,
right.
I was not fired. I am a late
Have you ever
person.
been fired?
No.
Oh, right.
No,
well,
no.
that's, I'm afraid.
Actually, that's a lie.
You're
That's a lie. I have been fired before, but not really fired. It was.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with it.
No,
it's good for you. It's good for you.
I went to Australia for a month, so they had to get rid of me because they didn't want me going for a month and then coming back. So
yeah, quite right too.
That's fair enough. But yeah, I thought those part-time jobs were really important, and we're now in a state where it's quite hard.
Isn't it quite difficult? Isn't it quite difficult for the over 21s to get part-time because of minimum pay?
I think I actually think it's probably easier because.
What, for the over 21s?
Yeah, I think because you've usually got some sort of experience by that point, and a problem with part-time jobs is a lot of the time they expect someone who's still at school to have so much experience just to literally be working at a bar or being a waiter, and there's all these standards that they want you to live up to, which I think is just ridiculous. But also we've got to a point where, because of our high streets, you've got stuff closing down all the time.
Yeah.
We need our high streets to be regenerated for so many reasons.
No, that's never going to happen.
Yes, it will.
No,
it can
we're
happen.
never going to regenerate the high street in the old-fashioned way with individual shops and everything. If you want anything, you either go on Amazon or you don't get it.
Well, I think if you get a government come in that's going to champion small businesses.
I don't agree with that, I'm sorry. I'm afraid the world has changed, and as somebody who had the choice of either going to Boots to buying some Colgate or actually going on Amazon, I decided to go on Amazon. So I saw one tube of toothpaste delivered 7 hours later. It was at that moment I knew a high street was finished. I guarantee. Look, it's going to be fantastic.
Yep.
Every success with your first show.
Thanks
I'm sure
very
you'll
much.
be a big winner.
I'm
sure the audience will like you. And if they don't like you, they will like Mark Littlewood. And if they like Mark Littlewood, they must be desperate. No. He's here. I didn't realise. I didn't realise. It's a shock. Okay, so that's me for this week. I'll be back on Monday. Look forward to speaking to you then. But the real person to start focusing on is Ellie.
And tomorrow, Mark Littlewood and Paul Cox.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Now I'm told there's a much better show on Fridays when I'm not here, which is Mark and Paul Cox, in which they have as much humour as they do have serious thought process, which actually is really a great joy, to be honest. If people are enjoying themselves and they're laughing, then I think the audience feel 101% part of it. And I know that these guys have been a big success, and Mark was a big success with the World Cup. Unfortunately, despite paying people at FIFA a lot of money, he can't arrange for a World Cup every 5 minutes, so he's now had to branch out into other forms of broadcasting. But look, he's part of the team. UK Live doing very well, by the way, thanks to the fact that Mike Graham left Talk Radio. They've seen their audience collapse by 20%, which does cheer me up. And he's grabbed them all, and he's making a great success. And I need that, and Mark needs that, because otherwise, no Mike Graham, then we'll be looking at quite a small audience. Anyway, thank you very much indeed, and thank you to Ralstro, who's just wished me well. I used to have a sign up on the wall at the Sun which said, "Make it up and make it early." Okay, and I thought that was very funny until Murdoch saw it. Get that down. Anyway.
Like the BBC is supposed to be impartial, but we know they're not, Kelvin.
So you've got an elite which is out of touch, believes in his progressive values, that has basically been in control of the country for 40 years. And then you've got the rest of the population who are, what the hell is happening to our country? What the hell is happening?
The establishment's rotten. It's gone rotten.
I know this sounds emotional. I may come across as, Ben, what are you on about? It's politics. No, we're in such a dire state in this country. We need true champions now to come forward.
Hi everyone, welcome back to CK Live, and it's me, Ellie Hodges. If you notice, this is not Kelvin MacKenzie sitting here anymore. And we've got a really exciting show coming up for you, and do keep in mind this is my first ever live show, so there might be some mistakes, but I'm sure it will all hopefully go smoothly. So the first guest I have with me is Mark Littlewood, who I'm sure you all know. Thank you for being my first ever guest, Mark.
I am privileged and honoured, Ellie. Always a delight to be with you.
I'm very glad that you have joined me as my first guest. So the topic that I really want to talk to you about today is this Jason Arde story, because exactly, that was my first reaction to it. I mean, it's just so bizarre that I have no words to explain it. I mean, could you kind of try and explain it to our viewers, because it's just ridiculous?
Yes, I mean, where to begin? I mean, you're right to say it's bizarre, but let's also admit it. It's also utterly delicious, isn't it? I mean, it exposes so much. So this chap, who I must admit I'd never heard of until this scandal broke, was made a professor of, I can't remember, inclusion and equality and equity or something at Jesus College, Cambridge, and has been lauded to the rooftops as he was the youngest black professor ever to be appointed at Cambridge. And as a fellow panellist on another TV show pointed out to me yesterday, he now has the distinction of being the youngest black professor ever to exit an academic career. And he has made a whole range of claims about his life and career, which, to put it marginally, have been found wanting. He claimed that he'd written a book that has never actually been published. He claimed fellowships from, I think it was Ohio University, and was it Southampton University? I can't recall, which it would just never existed.
My favourite one was the 30 marathons in, I think, 35 days. I mean, how?
Yes, he made athletic claims as well. Also that he was a former semi-professional football player and a professional snooker player. Now, you might say that those sort of claims wouldn't necessarily worry an academic institution, right?
No.
If you're brilliant at your particular academic discipline, I guess the fact that you've exaggerated somewhat about scoring the winning goal in 5 successive World Cup finals might be overlooked. But it's pretty clear that his academic credentials are incredibly thin. There are accusations that his own PhD was plagiarised by a student. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's going to be a great Netflix series when it is made. It's an incredible grift. But the delicious part is how many of the wokerati fell for it. This guy was hailed as a hero.
I mean, The Guardian is still actually defending him, saying that this is a right-wing kind of
Are they still
attack
defending
on
him? Right.
And I'm like, wow, you're still doing this after this list of just, quite frankly, just lies. And I think the marathon one was the highlight for me. And he also said during this time of him doing the 30 marathons in however many days, he actually had an injury as well.
Broken leg.
Could still carry on.
Yeah, he did it with a broken leg. I mean, these are the sort of equivalent of these claims is the North Korean leader always makes these claims. And I think they even have people trying to get him in the Guinness Book of Records, you know, claims to have done a round of golf in 18 shots, you know, every one a hole in one. So it's absolutely extraordinary. And thanks to a free press, I think it's the Daily Telegraph in particular, but there's a lot of praise to go around. He has been exposed. Big worries came up as long as 3 years ago. From academics, fellow academics at the university, but also from journalists who are approaching him and asking him questions. And although I'm delighting somewhat in his downfall, Ellie, the really troubling part of it, there was a journalist, his name escapes me now, from the Times Higher Education supplement, who approached him asking for his credentials and sort of, you know, here's a range of questions about your bona fides. And rather than answering them, because it seems evident to me that Ardé can't, he went to the cops. Scotland Yard get involved, conduct an investigation for, I can't remember how long, 4 years or something ridiculous, maybe 4 months. Don't even tell this journalist. And eventually they close the investigation. Absolutely extraordinary. The journalist was told to back off, Ellie. Can you believe this? Was told to back off because it might be injurious to Ardé's mental health. He's also made all sorts of claims about his mental health condition, that he was mute until he was 11, he didn't learn to read until he was 18. This is all absolutely extraordinary. In fact, I've been posting my thoughts about it all over X, and the best reply I got was from somebody earlier this morning who says, I'm beginning to question whether he's even black. Nothing would surprise me anymore, right? Yeah. Nothing would surprise me anymore. But the real scandal of it is that Cambridge University could have exposed this if they had bothered to conduct checks that would have taken, I don't know, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
It's because he was a symbol of them being progressive, and that's why they did it. And I think that, I don't know if we have got this video of this woman that was defending him and saying that all of these right-wing papers like the Telegraph saying that he was, you know, a token basically for Cambridge. I mean, they're absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of proven that was the case. Let's have a look at this video.
And to the surprise of literally no one, from the start, newspapers like the Telegraph and the Times have been calling him a diversity poster boy and just overall annoying him. But now they're taking it a step further and they're trying to smear him with accusations of plagiarism, basically saying his work isn't his own and trying to discredit him. And it's really interesting because it doesn't matter that academic journals, universities, everybody that has looked into these claims has found no evidence of plagiarism whatsoever. The newspapers do not care. And we have to talk about it. A baseless smear campaign against a distinguished black academic isn't just a personal attack. It's an attempt to shut down a black person who has a platform.
I mean, what can you say?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a smear campaign is when you spread things that you know to be false about somebody, right? That if I were to make up some scandalous falsehoods about you, Ellie, not that I need to, there's enough scandalous things about you that are true.
Dan Hodges' relative, apparently.
You're Dan Hodges' illegitimate daughter or something. Okay, well, there you go. So given that's true, it wouldn't be a smear to spread that about you. You know what I mean? So the claim when it's a smear is that you're reaching for things you haven't got any that aren't based in truth, like your supposed relationship with Dan Hodges or your genetic connection to him. But it's not a smear campaign for a journalist to test your bona fides. So did you really get this degree? Did you really write that? Did you? His other claim was he'd raised £5 million for charity. He now says that was a syndicate of 100 people. That he personally intervened in, was it South America, some part of the world, for water aid.
There wasn't even a scheme that you could actually do.
Correct. Water aid clarified they don't allow volunteers to do that. They funnel money to the local community. So it's not a smear to ask people questions about their past history. It's not a smear at all. So the real issue here is how has one of our great universities fallen for this? Because the other thing is that it's easy to expose this man.
So easy.
So you would have thought if he had, I don't know, if he was making some claim about, I don't know, something miraculous or upsetting or distressing that happened in his childhood many thousands of miles away where there are no records, you could sort of say, well, I guess we've got to just, trust me, bro. We've got to take him at his word. But when you're making claims which are easily verifiable or falsifiable on the public record, it would have taken Cambridge all of 5 minutes, maybe half an hour to get to the bottom of this. And they were warned. They were warned 3 years ago and have spent the time a bit like that lady on the video we just saw, saying this is a vile campaign against him. Well, it's not. It's the exposure of his obvious falsehoods. So it's extraordinary. I mean, I hope other heads roll.
Yeah.
I don't know where it goes next. Could students who were taught by him sue the university?
I mean, I'm sure they could but also this isn't just about him. This is about all of the people that let this happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, surely there were some questions that had got to be asked when he came out with all of these different things that he's done. I mean, I don't know if we have the video as well of I think it was another one of their teachers, the professors, saying, oh, he's literally the greatest thing to ever walk this earth. I'm literally saying that. Do we have this video? Yeah. Yes, have a look.
I think this is a tokenistic appointment. What are your thoughts on this?
The Board of Electors on your interview day were absolutely unanimous. We are so lucky to have you. You are the best in the world in terms of the research that you do.
I mean, it is a departure from reality, right? The only thing I can liken it to, this kind of ridiculous woke mind virus, it's this kind of I want to believe thing, isn't it? Yeah. It's like people who believe that, aliens have visited us. They want to believe, and they'll only look at information that reinforces their prejudices. Anyone who tries to expose those prejudices as lies and falsehoods is frowned upon, considered to be part of some untoward operation. It absolutely beggars belief. I was recalling yesterday that this way predates you, but may have been watched by your father, Dan Hodges, Ellie. But in the great comedy series Blackadder, there's a point where Blackadder says that there are only 3 great universities in England, Oxford, Cambridge and Hull. Well, now we're down to Oxford and Hull, I'm afraid. You can't take Cambridge University seriously after this. And my own view, obviously this won't happen under a leftist government, is in virtue of this, until heads roll and there is a complete overhaul of this process, Cambridge University should not receive a penny of taxpayer funding, not a single cent.
Do you not think it's actually quite insulting to those ethnic minority academics who are actually good and they're there because they are there on merit, that this guy has been allowed to kind of rise to, I mean, ridiculous amount of status. He's become like a very famous as well. I mean, when this all happened, he was all over every newspaper about how he was the first, young black academic at Cambridge. Do you think that this is another example of the kind of rejection of meritocracy?
Well, unambiguously. I mean, it's not just that I mean, it's even worse than that, Ellie, right? Because it's not just like he beat somebody else to the job. Who might have been better. This guy's credentials were non-existent.
Yeah.
And it's why I really fear for positive discrimination. The minute that you start saying somebody from this ethnic group or this gender or of this particular type or religious views needs to be given an edge, the assumption which you were highlighting is that all people with those characteristics must have been unreasonably unfairly promoted rather than on their merit. So the consequence of this guy's behaviour is that other perfectly legitimate black academics will be frowned upon. Did you pull the same stunt as Arde? So it's a disaster. Meritocracy has died in large parts of Britain. It's all about memes and vibes. And this guy ticked every meme and vibe box you could possibly want ticked. The fact that his academic credentials were essentially non-existent appears not to have concerned Cambridge University one jot. So the damage to Cambridge University's reputation is epic and deserved.
Definitely. I mean, should we read out some comments before we go on to talk about our amazing Prime Minister, Andy Burnham?
Have you seen him okay?
I think Ellie might have to bring a picture of her actual father if Mark keeps peddling the Dan Hodges for me.
Yeah,
I will have to ask my dad actually to prove that he is in fact my dad. Dan Hodges, I'm not related to him at all. He was just, you know, winding me up, and it clearly worked. So much talent on UK Live Online. I'm spending too much time on the sofa. That's absolutely fine. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying this. Ellie, you're doing fantastic. I'm loving the show. Thank you so much, and thank you very much, Mark, for being my first guest on the show. Really appreciate that. Should we go on to talk about our Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, now?
Why not?
Why not? I mean, how's he doing, do you think?
Well, I mean, he's a little bit easier on the eye than the last guy, right?
Yeah.
You can say that about him, and he has a certain charm. Is that the right word? Easy style. I've only met him once.
Okay.
And I'm trying to.
What was that experience like?
It was on a Radio 2 show, and it was something to do about football. It must have been 10 years ago or something. And, you know, so I can, in terms of my kind of direct knowledge of him, I can only base it on having met him for kind of 10, 20 minutes. Seemed a perfectly personable chap. He is a personable chap.
Yeah.
But there is no plan. I mean, we've just been talking about the memes and vibes around our day. I mean, Burnham is all about memes and vibes. Can anybody tell me what Manchesterism is, what Burnhamism is? He's attuned to the media, so there's going to be this sort of rollout of a daily announcement with, you know, him standing in a warehouse or on a bus.
His TikToks is something that he's definitely pushing a lot now.
This is what he thinks politics is about. But I haven't got a single clue about how he's going to get the deficit down. What does he think would bring economic growth to the economy? What is his plan for immigration other than to, quote, get a grip on it?
I mean, we haven't heard much from him about immigration at all, have we? And I mean, he could actually be really popular if he just sorted out our immigration crisis.
Yeah.
But he won't do it because, and also there's the problem of his backbenchers. Are they really behind him, or?
Well, I think they're behind him as long as he does nothing.
Yeah.
Basically. So as long as it is all just sort of memes and vibes and touchy-feely, hoopy-changey stuff, he's fine. But most of the things that you need to do to get a grip of the big issues facing Britain require something somewhat more muscular than that. Huge cuts to the welfare budget, a total overhaul, indeed an ending of the present asylum system. There's no way he can get anywhere close to doing that.
And how do you think he will do internationally, especially with, you know, Trump, for example? Because Trump has actually come out and said that he quite likes him. Do you think that will continue?
I think Trump will eat him alive. I mean, Trump's obviously highly inconsistent and unpredictable. I mean, I think he's lauded Keir Starmer and then slammed Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
As soon as Burnham does anything that even mildly irritates Donald Trump, even if that mild irritation is not justified, Trump will go bananas. My best advice to Burnham would be to try and avoid that relationship rather than embrace it.
Avoid that relationship. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, and we have this video of Ed Miliband actually with Marco Rubio, and it's quite something, I'd say. Let's have a look.
Mr. Miliband, do you still think the President is an idiot, a racist and a misogynist? Sir, do you still hold a dim view of the President and does it hamper your business?
We're looking forward to our meeting.
What do you want to say?
Are you going to be talking about Ukraine or any sign of progress on
Mr. Rubio, are you looking for...
What kind of question are we going to be talking about Ukraine?
Are you looking for Britain to be on the right?
And intergalactic affairs and all that other things.
Sir, are you looking for Britain to be on the right?
Mr. Miliband, you apologise for calling Mr. Trump a racist, sir.
I mean, how can Ed Miliband possibly strike up any positive relationship with Trump?
Well, quite, or even with Rubio.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see
it's just embarrassing.
You can see that these are two men who have absolutely nothing in common. And Ed Miliband thinks that the way to cloak that is to say nothing and put on an utterly insane grin.
Yeah.
That was it. So, yeah, I mean, look, the big mistake here, and people on the right of politics need to be conscious of this as well. If you pile in, you know, calling some foreign politician a misogynist, a racist, or whatever else it might be, a crook, a criminal, so it goes on, and that foreign politician then assumes a position of power that is vital to you. You've put yourself and your country in a diminished position. I think it's okay to be critical of foreign politicians, by the way, but if you use language of the type used by Miliband and Lamy, it sours a relationship. I think that makes Miliband unfit to be our Foreign Secretary on that basis alone.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that. And I just don't understand why he would have ever been the right appointment here. I guess it's because I think Andy Burnham just kind of wants to get him out of the country and it's just pushing him around there. I think that might be a big reason as to why he's been appointed as Foreign Secretary. But what do you make of the other appointments?
What, convicted fraudster Louise Hay as Deputy Prime Minister? Pretty strange, that one, isn't it? It's my view overall, although I don't know the exact sort of factions and ideological positioning of Labour MPs as well as I know those on the Tory side of the ledger, is that the Burnham cabinet is a somewhat measurable tilt to the left compared to Starmer's. That sort of, I mean, put aside what you think of these people's competencies, but Rachel Reeves, for example, or certainly Liz Kendall, on the Blairite wing or the moderate wing of the Labour Party, now both out. Yvette Cooper, somewhere near that space as well, demoted. So it's a tilt towards the left of the party. Or from
I think the left actually say differently though. From what I can see.
Which extreme right wingers do they think around the cabinet table?
But from what I can see, they are actually saying that he's kind of shifting a bit right. I know we would both disagree with that, but they have that opinion, which I find quite interesting. I mean, I guess maybe John Healey is a bit more to the right. What do you think about that?
Well, probably middle of the road.
Yeah.
But I would say Healey is slightly to the left of Reeves.
Okay.
So we now have a slightly more left-wing chancellor. I mean, all of these are, shades and grades and increments. So it's not obvious to me that. I mean, he may be a more competent chancellor, but that's a rather different thing. I think in most positions there's been a tilt to the left. I mean, the only sign that I took, which I was quite happy about, was I think Pat McFadden at the Welfare Department has some sort of ambition to get welfare spending under control. I suspect his ambitions will be frustrated by his parliamentary colleagues, but nevertheless, we haven't got a hardcore lefty in charge of the biggest spending department. Where's streeting to defence? I mean, fine, I guess, but it doesn't strike me that that's Streeting's strong suit.
No, not
so
at
that
all.
was a bit of an odd one. I would have preferred Streeting to be in a serious economic profile, because insofar as there are any Labour politicians I like, and Streeting is somewhat more towards the moderate end of the spectrum, but he's dealing with defence, in which his job will be to spend more government money. So I consider that to be a misallocation of Streeting's talents insofar as they exist.
And let's quickly talk about the state of the Conservative Party as well, just kind of going through all of the stories of today. There's been quite a few. So there's been lots of controversy around this councillor, this Conservative councillor was going to stand as a councillor, then came out that he used to basically be a neo-Nazi. He had come out with some really anti-Semitic things in the past. And he's now worked on kind of anti-radical, being radicalised and stuff. And Kemi Badenoch has now appointed him as an advisor. What do you think about that? Can those mistakes be forgiven? Is that actually a good move from Kemi, or is it just optically awful?
Overall, as a strategy, I don't think it's a terrible move, right?
Okay.
I do believe in giving people second chances if there is genuine remorse about what they have done. And although I've never met this chap, Joshua, whatever his name is, who now runs Crewkern Gazette, doesn't he? The
AI
online
Twitter
show.
account,
it does seem that there's genuine remorse there. And I'd sort of liken it to this. I don't think I ever experienced it myself at school, but quite often you'd get coming to talk to young boys at school, former convicted criminals who have seen the error of their ways, right? Rather than saying, oh my God, we can't possibly have a former convicted criminal who used to be involved in gangs and knife crime coming to talk to the boys. They actually see it as useful if the rehabilitation is genuine. In this guy's case, from what I can gather, the rehabilitation is genuine, right? This isn't just something he's covering up, something that happened a long time ago, and he is a changed man. That said, Kemi screwed this up, I think, to some degree. Not because the strategy was wrong, but because if you're going to make a bold move like that and actually say, I want a former neo-Nazi to be wearing a Conservative rosette in a public election, I think you need a more public rehabilitation than she allowed. So this guy should have given, I don't know, a speech at Conservative Party conference, for example, about how he had changed his ways. He should have had an online video in which he and Kemi were discussing his past. Because out of a clear blue sky, all you got was former neo-Nazi. Oh, apparently Kemi thinks that he's all right. So I think there needed to be a public part of the rehabilitation. The optics of it were absolutely terrible. The other thing that has slightly pulled the rug from under Kemi's feet, although I think I might be glad about this, it's going to make it a bit tricky for the Tories to criticise the previous record of reform candidates in the future, isn't it? If you've actually said you want a former neo-Nazi to run for you, it's going to be difficult to go through the social media feeds of reform candidates saying, oh, that's a bit off colour.
And the Conservatives have been very big on that as well, with whenever there's a reform councillor that might have said something in the past. I mean, I think rightly so, they've kind of exposed them, but it's going to be hard for them to do that now that they have this guy who is literally a former neo-Nazi. I mean, I know Reform have definitely attacked the Conservatives over this. But do you think there's a difference between, you know, actually being a councillor, having this been your past, and advising the party?
There is definitely a difference, and the reason given for him stepping down as a potential council candidate was that the entire election, certainly in his ward but more widely, would be covered by his past. Whereas if you're a behind the scenes kind of guy or gal and you're just genuinely giving advice to somebody, well, you know, it's not played out in public. You're not knocking on doors. You don't have your name on posters. Your name doesn't appear on the ballot paper. So it is different. But I think they should have done it the other way round. It's as if he's been given this advisor role as a consolation prize.
Yeah.
Well, I would have given him the advisor role, made a big song and dance about it. We want to learn from rehabilitated neo-Nazis. We want to rehabilitate other neo-Nazis. And then perhaps down the line, when people have got used to you and have understood your public personality, and he's been, I don't know, a guest on UK Live Online 5 or 6 times, then you might consider him as a candidate. But I thought the bit they got wrong was not the overarching strategy, which is fair-minded in my view and wise. It was the execution of it. The cart was put many miles before the horse, and that's why it's backfired. Unusual misstep for Kemi, by the way. She's usually extraordinarily cautious and methodical, leading some people to accuse her of being a bit slow, not sort of having the pace, not shooting from the hip. But she sort of shot from the hip a bit here, and I'm afraid it hasn't worked, because I would have liked it to have worked.
Yeah, and before you go, let's quickly talk about Reform. We've got the by-election in Clacton coming up. What do you make of it?
Well, it is a truly bizarre by-election, isn't it?
It is. I know we spoke about this before, and it's just...
And I dashed here today without having quite finished my weekly betting column, which I write on political betting for the Daily Sceptic. Look, Farage is going to win, and he's going to win by an absolute landslide. I'm considering placing a bet that he'll secure more than 80% of the vote, albeit on a lowish turnout. Here is something which would be great banter if it occurs, not for Farage, who I'm sure wants to get back to campaigning on the issues rather than having to deal with all of these questions about gifts given to him and party financing. Let's imagine that the bin gets, I don't know, 15% of the vote, right? Count Binface comes second with 15% of the vote, let's say. Let's then further imagine that this by-election has to be rerun in 2 or 3 months' time because the Standards Committee fined against Farage. He's suspended from Parliament. There's a recall petition. There's a few hurdles to clear, but nevertheless, it seems to me eminently possible we might have another by-election there in, I don't know, October, November, for sake of argument. In that scenario, I would expect Nigel Farage to comfortably win that seat again in the second by-election. But I think we might have the delightful prospect that having built a base of support, Count Binface might beat some of the other mainstream parties. In fact, he should go around saying, last time I came second to Nigel Farage. Don't waste your vote on the Tories or Labour or the Liberal Democrats or the Greens. Vote for me. So insofar as Count Binface causes embarrassment to our more mainstream politicians, I think the last laugh might be on the mainstream parties, that if there's a rerun of this, Farage will win again handsomely, but Binface could come second again. and ahead of Tories,
I can't
Labour
even believe
and
we're
Greens.
having this conversation.
This is how serious our politics has become, Ellie, isn't
Wow.
it? We've got to get our minds around the get out the vote operation of Count Binface and his party. So, yeah, I think this could be a bit of a pre-show, and a second by-election would be enormously more dramatic and might not cause the mainstream parties to snigger at Farage in quite the way they have in recent weeks.
Thank you very much, Mark, for being the first guest on my show.
A true honour.
I hope to see you soon. So next, we've got Maeve Halligan, who is a women's rights activist and founding president of the Cambridge University Society of Women. She's been going very viral recently, actually, for her speech made in Cambridge, and she's been doing the media rounds since. Is Maeve there? Yeah. Oh, she is there. Hi, Maeve. How are you? I can't hear. Have you muted yourself?
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
How are you, Maeve?
I'm really well. Nice to see you, and thanks for having me on.
No problem. So I really want to talk to you about the Labour's Women's Conference and kind of what's happening there, and why there's been 4 Labour-affiliated trade unions that have actually started boycotting it. Could you tell us more?
Sure. So the Labour Women's Conference is, it happens annually, and it's sort of an extra part of just the more general conference. Now, this will be happening in September this year. And there are 4 out of the 11 Labour-affiliated unions who have decided this year to boycott. Now, they are boycotting because this women's conference is now going to be, the vast majority of the kind of components of the conference are going to be single sex. They will be women only, female only, however you want to put it. Now, the boycott is happening because these unions have decided that that decision goes against their so-called inclusivity policies when it comes to trans-identified individuals, in this case, men who identify as women. So they will be boycotting the conference. I should add that that doesn't mean that trans-identifying men, or sometimes called trans women, are totally removed from the whole thing. They can attend the fringe events of the conference, so like the reception and the exhibition, but they can't do things like vote. They can't participate in debates on policy or speeches or similar. So it's not like they're totally removed, although in my opinion they absolutely should be. It should be a women's conference in every sense of that word. There should be no space for men, however they identify. Personally, I'm simply not interested. Now, one of the biggest unions boycotting is Unison, and they are a huge donor to the Labour Party. So over the past 25 years, they have donated over £40 million, and they're a very powerful union as a result. But I would say, and I've said before, that this is it reframes this boycott as a desire to deploy this financial leverage over the Labour Party to effectively try and bully them into not complying with the law. When I say the law, I'm talking about the fact that in April of 2025, the UK Supreme Court ruled that in the Equality Act, when we say woman, we mean biological woman, and when we say sex, we mean biological sex, and all the rest of it. So these are unions seeking to boycott a conference because they are angry about the law, because they believe that it discriminates against men who are seeking to infiltrate a women-only event.
I mean, do you think that they ever actually will accept the law? Because it feels like there's lots of these different groups and trade unions that are just going to continue to push this, even though the law has quite literally clarified what being a woman means.
Sure. So it's important to mention that the EHRC Code of Practice for Services has been, we know what it is now. It came into force just yesterday, I believe, on August the 5th, and it applies across England and Scotland and Wales. And it basically says to services, businesses, associations that it strongly encourages them, let's say, to provide single-sex services, be that bathrooms, be that changing rooms or similar. Now, it doesn't necessarily create legal obligation, but it's important because it can be used in tribunals and stuff. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is an important thing for women and for our sex-based rights. But you're right, it's really concerning to see how you've got unions doubling down and, getting up in arms about the fact that the law, which is there to protect women, it is now coming into force, and they're having to really combat it. What I will say is that I'd love to know if these unions surveyed their members. Did they ask every single person involved what they actually think? Or is this a classic case of leadership deciding that they know what's best for everybody and they have a monopoly on morality and on compassion? I would argue that, there must be, especially women in these unions, who are probably happy that the law now has been clarified, not that we all didn't know already, in order to protect women. I mean, you know, this is misogyny, and it's dressed up, but it's exactly the same old story that we've seen in politics time and time again, to be honest. One thing I should also add about Unison is that they have previous. I mean, Miranda Newsom, who was banned or barred from all 8 council-run leisure centres in her neighbourhood in London. She was barred because she complained when she saw a trans-identifying male in the female changing room. She complained, and the response of that leisure centre was to bar her. Anyway, Unison, one of the unions boycotting the Labour Women's Conference, then organised a protest against her and in favour of that man's supposed right to access these female-only spaces. So it's quite clear that part of Unison's modus operandi right now is actively seeking to erode the sex-based rights of women, especially their right to single-sex services.
And how much power do you think that these unions actually have? Do you think this could actually, obviously they are going to have to keep to the law, so they're not going to start letting, well, I hope not that they're going to start letting trans women, i.e. men, into this conference. But do you think that these unions actually have quite a lot of influence and power over the Labour members?
Well, in theory, yeah, and I've said, especially because financially, again, Unison is such a big donor, so that is definitely something that they can leverage, as I've mentioned. Other than that, though, what we know about transgender ideology more generally is that when it is very, very loudly promoted by a minority, a lot of people, especially women, are kind of bullied into compliance and into self-censorship. So the reason that transgenderism has successfully infiltrated not only legislation, but our institutions, and also, I would argue, sort of the minds of a lot of people in our society, chief among them young women, which I have a lot of experience with, it is an effective ideology, as in it's been deployed very, very effectively. So it's going to be difficult to unpick this stuff. But the fact that Labour are complying with the law, I refuse to credit them. As I have said before, I don't think that this is because they are doing so based on conviction or on principle. They're doing so simply because the law is now telling them that they absolutely have to. Now, last year, they cancelled the Women's Conference altogether because they were too cowardly to actually comply with the law and protect women's right to have their own event. And it's not like it's some, you know, massive, extremely well-funded thing. No, this is just a day or, you know, sort of tacked on to the main conference. I should add that the Labour Women's Declaration have been absolutely instrumental in really condemning these unions' decision to boycott, and they've called it petulant and they've called it performative, and I think that's absolutely right. The Labour Women's Declaration as well, their work is very important because they prove what is a fact that it often goes unacknowledged or conveniently ignored by trans rights activists, which is that you don't have to be on the right, you don't have to be conservative to be gender critical, aka to be pro-women and our sex-based rights. These are women who are decidedly left of centre. You know, they are members of the Labour Party, they are members of the Labour Women's Declaration, the clue's in the name. You don't have to be conservative in order to acknowledge biological sex and seek to protect and promote women's sex-based rights, issues and causes on that basis. Being gender critical is not party political, and we've seen that time and time again. In fact, a lot of women, you know, have been ousted from political parties, for example, the Greens, simply because they were voicing gender critical views or even just some concerns at the aggressive and pernicious nature of gender ideology. That doesn't mean that they cease to be left leaning. It just means that parties are rejecting them because they've decided that being gender critical cannot align with the sort of left, radical left, I'd argue, the sort of omni cause at the moment.
I mean, it is a really good point because lots of people do just assume that it's only right-wing women who can acknowledge biological sex, and that's actually not true at all. But I do think that I actually feel quite bad for left-wing women who can see the truth here, because it must be really hard for them. And I'd actually like to speak to you about, obviously you went really viral after you were at Cambridge and you did your speech. How was it when you set up the Women's Society and were only letting biological women into it? And what was that experience like at university?
So what I found quite interesting is that, you know, I was, of course, personally attacked a lot online, but also in person. My time at Cambridge was very fun in lots of ways. I was only there for one academic year, so short and sweet, but because I was doing a postgraduate degree. But so I received a lot of flack myself. But one of the terms that was often, you know, that the society was dubbed exclusionary. And what really bothered me about that is that there are dozens and dozens. I think there are well over 100 student societies, not only at Cambridge, but at the average university. Students like to organise and have groups and, unify over a common factor or interest. Why were we the only people being attacked for unifying on the basis of sex, which is one of the most obvious categories that, that's part of being a human being? It's not like people were looking at the, Caribbean society and saying, oh, you're excluding non-Caribbean people. Yeah. It's not like people were looking at the, Lord of the Rings society and saying, oh, you're excluding people who don't like Tolkien. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. We were attacked for being exclusionary because we decided to associate on a sex basis. And that's absolutely right and valid and needed, I would argue, because of the backlash that we faced for doing so. That speaks to the necessity of the work that myself, my co-founders, and all of our members were doing. It's not exclusionary to seek to come together as women and to discuss the issues and causes that we are interested in right now. I will add that, these trans-identifying men, they're seeking to co-opt a female identity, which is not only deeply misogynistic, it's also homophobic insofar as a lot of these just heterosexual men who call themselves lesbians and try to infiltrate lesbian spaces, which is absolutely abhorrent. It's obviously such a problem. And the fact that this is happening at universities so commonly, and that we as young women were on the end of so much hatred and vitriol, it speaks to a way, way bigger thing that's happening on our campuses right now, which is huge threat posed to freedom of speech and expression, academic freedom, freedom of association in our case. There's clearly something going really, really wrong. Universities have been infiltrated by gender ideology, but others as well. And I think it's something that really needs to be addressed. And what I can say about the Society of Women is that it did stress test that system, which for too long had been getting away with basically telling women to shut up.
And do you think that there's a lot of young people now that are, obviously you have your kind of group that are all very sane on this issue. Do you think that young people are starting to wake up and actually speak out about this?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. Myself, Connie Shaw, who's another great young woman and has absolutely been at the forefront of youth gender critical activism, or as I'd say, pro-women activism. I've worked with her on some stuff and we have so many other people in our lives, many of whom are our dear friends, who are absolutely, sane, as you say, but are active in this sphere, because it's really important to just say the thing at this point, because so many people have self-censored for so long. And that the number of us is growing all the time, and, we're organising, and that's really important. But also, I get contacted online all the time by young people, especially young women, which is really heartening in some senses, because, they can reach out to me, they can see what I'm doing and saying, and it gives them something to point to, something to agree with, rather than having to just themselves put their head above the parapet. But it can also be really sad, because a lot of the time these young women are saying, I couldn't possibly say this, I'd lose all my friends. I couldn't possibly say this, I'd risk my job, Yeah,
it's really sad. But Maeve, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate that, being on my first ever show as well, and hopefully see you soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
See you later. Bye. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. Maeve is really good at this, and she's really good at talking about these issues, and she went really, really viral for the speech that she did at Cambridge, just calling out common sense and talking about biological sex. That was really good. I hope everyone is enjoying the show so far. We've had Mark Littlewood, that was Maeve Halligan, and we've got Toby Young, Colin Sutton and Adam Cherry from Guido Fawkes coming up as well. Should we read some comments? Yes. Let me take this out now. Laura Jane, Super Chat, women's rights and safety matter. Exactly. And this is just common sense. And I think that Maeve actually made a really good point there, that this isn't party political and this shouldn't be a right versus left issue. And that actually there's lots of women from all different sides of politics that can acknowledge the basic fact of biological sex. That's a really good point to make there. Have we got any more? Another super chat, thank you so much. Congratulations, I'm sure you'll be a mega star. Thank you so much, that's really nice. I hope you guys are all enjoying this. As I said, this is my first live show, so it might not be perfect, but first time. Ellie and Maeve are fab, thank you so much. I really like Maeve, she's lovely, and all of those women, Connie Shaw as well. group of women that are just calling out all of this trans nonsense. Ellie is excellent, so professional and relaxed. Thank you very much. I really enjoy doing this, actually. I've really enjoyed myself for my first time. If even Ellie, a representative of our young, maybe things will turn out all right. I hope so, and I hope I can bring some kind of optimism to the show. I know there's lots of shows that just kind of talk about how bad everything is all the time, and it can really get you down, and I hope that I can bring some optimism and talk about the serious issues that we have in this country, but also say how we're going to fix them and give you guys a little bit of hope. But now let's go to the news, and we'll be back with Toby Young.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. A body has been recovered in the search for a 13-year-old boy who got into difficulty while swimming off Hornsea on the East Yorkshire coast. Police say the death is not being treated as suspicious. Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank have welcomed their third child, a baby girl born in Lisbon, Portugal. Britain is heading for what could be its worst cereal harvest in 4 decades after the driest July on record in England and Wales, with farmers warning of major crop losses from prolonged drought and heat. Politically, Reform UK has regained a poll lead over Labour, amid talk that any early burn and bounce under the new Prime Minister may already be fading. Laters, Tigers.
That was the news, and we've got Toby coming up next, Toby Young from the Free Speech Union, which I'm sure you all know very well, and I would urge you guys all to become a member. I know that I am. It's a very, very important organisation. I'm really looking forward to speaking to him. And we're also speaking to Colin Sutton as well, which I'm really, really excited for. He's just absolutely amazing. I mean, the stories that he has are just incredible. So looking forward to speaking to him. Let's read out some comments again. David, what a great lineup. Well done, Ellie. Great show. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. As I said, it's my first show, so it can only go up from here. Great first show, Ellie. You're smashing it, and long may it continue. Thank you very much. And who is this that's just come in? We've got Peach with us now.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello, Ellie.
How are you?
Yeah, fine. Well, more to the point, how are you? From the gallery, this is fantastic. We're really enjoying it. How are you feeling?
Good, good. First live show, so I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I'm very comfortable here, and I'm really enjoying it, actually. I've really enjoyed it. We've had Mark Littlewood come in, which is really good. Always very relaxed with him. I've interviewed him so many times. Yeah. He's always great. And then we just had Maeve Halligan as well, who's just, I think she's absolutely brilliant in the work that she's done. And now we've got you. So I mean, what more could I ask for?
You've done you've done plenty of podcasts, and I know
Yes.
you work with the New Culture Forum.
Yeah, I used to do some work with them, but now I'm just kind of doing my freelance stuff. But I'm hosting the Daily Skeptics podcast, which is Toby Young's organisation as well.
So how do you find the difference between being live, that immediacy, and the comments that come in? I've been reading the comments; they're amazing.
I'm glad.
How do you find that? I mean, you must have been a bit nervous at the beginning.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's very different doing live compared to, pre-recorded stuff, because when you are doing pre-recorded stuff, you feel like you are just talking to that person. Yeah. Whereas I'm talking to you now, but I feel like I'm talking to loads of other people as well, which is great. And I like that. I like that you kind of got a connection with the audience. I love the comments coming in as well. And I appreciate all of the nice comments. So yeah, I think I actually prefer doing live. It's quite fun. And as you said, I was a little bit nervous before, but I always do things that make me nervous, because once you do it, then you're very excited. So
what's really interesting, and people don't realise, because you watch someone like Mike Graham, been doing it ages, he has what we call broadcast craft. Yeah. And radio DJs have radio craft. So it's things like, you can't see it at home, guys, but Ellie's got a couple of screens in front of her. She's got a running order. She's got a prompt screen. We've got Scarlett and Luke in the gallery, and they're pressing buttons to say guest here, guest not here. And sometimes the guests turn up a little late, and that means that you then have to fill. And you just have
to keep talking.
And keep it interesting as well, and that engagement. So I think the biggest thing, broadcast craft, that certainly Mike Graham does and all good broadcasters do, and you're doing now, is that connection with the audience. So you say when you're doing a podcast, it's just talking to me here.
You're just talking to that person, really.
But when you're doing a show like this, you are talking to one person. You're just talking to one person behind that camera. Yeah. And that's everybody. So I think it's fantastic. It's great to have you on board. absolutely loving it.
Yeah, I'm loving it as well. It's great fun, and I'm glad that I've got kind of all of these guests. They're all amazing people, including you as well, of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
But yeah, it is very different, but I am enjoying it. It's fun. I mean, it's crazy to think, how long have I been on? 47 minutes. It goes by quite quickly.
It does.
I haven't felt like I've been talking for 45 minutes. I mean, you've got to be a good talker to do live TV, definitely.
Actually, I was interested. I was talking to you, and I said, where do you see yourself in a few years' time? What do you want to do? And you said, I want to be a presenter. Well, you are a presenter now. But when did you get that idea in your head? When did you decide you wanted to do that? I mean, I still don't know what I want to do with my life at my age now. You know, I'm making stuff up as I go along, you know.
I mean, I don't think there was one particular moment. I mean, I kind of went through school not really knowing what I wanted to do. And then
Did you do GCSEs and then not do A-levels?
No, not do A-levels.
Not interested, or?
I just wanted to start working ASAP. I'm quite ambitious, and I like to make things happen for myself. And I always say to young people as well, stuff isn't going to happen for you. I think a lot of young people think that stuff just happens for them. You have to make things happen for yourself. You have to reach out, you know.
Well, so if I can have the camera there, everybody. I was getting notes over the past 2 or 3 weeks from Ellie saying, do you have a spare slot? If someone doesn't turn up, I will do it, I will do it. And then, Ellie, you were so persistent that I'm speaking to Mike Graham and Donald, our other partner.
Yeah.
We were so happy to see a young person wanting to do that. And all you can do when you're older and in business is, try and run a good business, but give people a chance.
Yeah.
And that's not patronising, because
no, I know.
I got where I am, whatever. Everybody gets where they are. You need a chance. Someone has to give you a chance, give you an opportunity at some point. And I really admired that. I really admired it.
Thank you.
Before we go to Toby, we've got a nice comment.
Okay.
Someone sent you £5.
Oh, nice.
Let's look at the
Me?
Not you, unfortunately.
This has come to...
You got that screen there as well.
Oh, there you go. That's much better. This has come so incredibly natural to you. Congrats. It's great to see our age group being represented and showing we're not all rabid socialists. Harvey, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. And I'm glad that you're watching as someone who is younger as well. I mean, that's something that I love to see. I love to see younger people involved in politics and just kind of educating themselves. And every vote counts, no matter how old you are. And I'm very glad that you're watching.
Yeah, but you're a bit of an outlier with centrist views.
Yeah.
And let's not be pejorative about any of the views. If you're left, you know, liberal, centre, right, and let's say right isn't far right. It's just people with maybe common sense. But do you find that you're a bit of an outlier with all your friends?
Yes, I would say they find it weird that I'm interested in politics. Like, it's quite a random thing to be interested in from a young age, but I think it's one of the most important things, because politics is everywhere. Everything you do is politics without people realising. And literally everything you do in life is somehow related to politics. Me having a conversation with you here is about politics. The fact that we're able to get this studio is to do with politics, because you rent it or you buy it from someone. You
and paying really high business rates.
Exactly. Everything comes back to politics. So, and I don't expect everyone to, you know, watch politics all the time, but I think it's really good just to have a basic understanding of what's happening. And I urge more young people to do that. And also, like, if you have ambition, follow it, because you can make anything happen if you want to.
And with a bit of a link here.
Yes.
Because we're in this kind of space, I felt a need to join the Free Speech Union.
Yes.
I believe we've got Toby Young.
We have got Toby here. Toby, hi.
Toby, hi.
Hi, Ellie.
How are you?
I'm okay. Do we need to adjust this? I see that the FSU thing has become. Should we? Maybe if I. If you have a look on the screen, Alex, it's like the F has been cut off. It looks a bit weird. Yeah, that looks okay.
There you go. There you go. You can see that's Free Speech Union there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Is that okay? That's good.
Hold on. Can we just pull it?
Perfect.
There we go. Yeah. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me, Toby. So I've got a lot that I want to speak to you about today. So the Jason Arde story, I mean, we've been talking about it with Mark. It's absolutely insane. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's been an extraordinary story. I read the blog post by Nathan Kofnas, the ex-Cambridge Don, who broke the story, I think on July 21st. And thought, well, this is quite big, but I was worried that it would be quite quickly hushed up, that his defenders would zealously defend him, accuse anyone raising questions about his academic credentials or his life story of being racist. And of course, that is what happened. So Jolyon Morm at the Good Law Project started a petition, open letter, and it was signed by over 13,000 people, including 3 heads of Cambridge colleges, various professors, several Labour MPs, various prominent figures in public life, all essentially saying, how dare you question the credentials or the life story of this distinguished black scholar. You're racist, shut up, go away. But happily, the allegations were taken up by various newspapers, including The Guardian, even the New York Times, the BBC, although it's quite late to the party. And it turned out that, that there was something to this story. And the deeper people dug into his story, the more problematic it appeared to be. And yesterday, we had the denouement in which Cambridge finally said, Cambridge University, that it would be opening an investigation into Jason Arde, as did Jesus College, the Cambridge college where he was a fellow. And shortly afterwards, Jason Arde announced that he was resigning his professorship and resigning as a fellow of Jesus. But the investigation is continuing, so the story isn't over yet. But it has been just remarkable how viral the story has gone. I guess it has helped a bit that it's been in August, the silly season, when there isn't much political news, and it's been just a great silly season story. It's, from a newspaper's point of view, a gift that keeps on giving. It's hard, I think, at this point not to feel a little bit sorry for Jason Arde. He has clearly been enabled by a series of patronizing academics who've elevated him far above his natural station, and he's come a cropper. But it must be, I suppose you could say that he's in the process of being cancelled. And of course, he's made his bed to a great extent. But as someone who was cancelled myself, that was the reason I set up the Free Speech Union 6 years ago. It's hard not to feel some sympathy for what he must be going through now.
And I also think it's kind of insulting for some of the ethnic minority academics who are actually got there on merit and are actually really successful, that he's kind of been able to just continue lying without being questioned. And what do you think this says about our institutions, the fact that he has just been able to get away with this for quite a long time, really, until now?
Yes, I mean, I think we clearly have a problem in many of our institutions, particularly universities, with black applicants for roles being held to a lower standard than other applicants. I mean, all the people that defended Jason Arde think of themselves as being, implacable opponents of racism, and think they're on the right side of history. They're the good guys. But to hold a black scholar to a lower standard than a white scholar, the implication is that if they were held to the same standard as white scholars, then they'd never be promoted, they'd never get Cambridge professorships, which is, not only extremely patronizing, but also a little bit racist as well. And as you say, does a huge disservice to those successful black scholars who are where they are on merit. I mean, it must be devastating for them to now be tarred with this same brush.
And do you think this is just another example of, well, it is another example, do you think this will continue of just this kind of complete rejection of meritocracy and putting people in certain positions just because of who they are?
Well, I think we've had a kind of retreat from meritocracy, which has been ongoing for the last 25 years, and partly enabled by the Equality Act. The Equality Act has various provisions in it, such as the public sector equality duty and the positive action clauses, which gives public bodies a license to ignore the prohibitions on discrimination in the Equality Act when it comes to supposedly underrepresented groups. So if you're applying from a demographic that's underrepresented in the company, the institution, the public body you're applying to, then they can lower the standards effectively when it comes to considering your application in order to have a more representative workforce. And that has led to all kinds of unintended consequences. But in particular, it's led to the exclusion of white applicants, particularly white male heterosexual applicants for particular roles. We had one case at the Free Speech Union in which an employee of the Department for I think Health and Social Services, maybe it was Work and Pensions. I think it was Work and Pensions, was asked by her boss to arrange an introduction day for people who wanted to apply to be police officers, I think it was, and white people were excluded. So she had to advertise this opportunity to many long-term unemployed people that she'd been working with, but not long-term unemployed white people, just long-term unemployed black and brown people and women. And she balked at receiving this instruction, objected internally, and as a result was dismissed for gross misconduct. And we went to bat for her and got her a finding of unfair dismissal in the employment tribunal and a substantial payout. But that kind of thing is now happening more and more. I mean, another example earlier this year, I think it was, maybe it was late last year, MI5 were advertising for a particular role, and white people, white men, were explicitly told they couldn't apply. So, you know, that's just reverse racism and no more defensible than out and out racism. So, yeah, you're right. We have been in retreat from meritocracy. The Equality Act is partly to blame, and we urgently need a correction.
And we've now got our new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. He started off his premiership by refusing to give journalists questions, which wasn't the best start in terms of free speech. Do you expect that he will continue the crackdown on free speech, or should we actually be optimistic?
To be optimistic, Ellie. I mean, I think people have been led, I think, into a false sense of hope, people who are pro-free speech, because he doesn't give off the same kind of lanyard-wearing, finger-wagging, authoritarian man from HR vibe that Sir Keir Starmer gave off. He's more empathetic, he's a better communicator, he's good at furrowing his brow and looking concerned, but I'm not sure that will be helpful, and in fact it might be unhelpful. He might be even better, you know, at selling fetters on our free speech, you know, on kind of humanitarian grounds. We need to we need to watch what we say. We need to bite our tongues, because what we say may cause offence, and we really should care more about the people that are likely to be offended by our hurty words. So you can see him kind of weaponizing that empathy, those communication skills, that impression he gives of being a compassionate, caring man, to actually fetter our free speech even more than his predecessor did. So I'm not particularly optimistic, no.
And lastly, I'd just like to quickly ask you about the story that was all across the media a few weeks ago, which was Zach Polanski reposting this picture of a Green Party supporter wearing a shirt saying, "We've only got plans for Nigel," picture of a guillotine. What do you think should have happened to him? Because I know that you're quite absolutist when it comes to free speech.
Yeah, I mean, I felt slightly torn about this one, Ellie. I mean, I can understand why Nigel Farage, in the immediate aftermath of the brutal murder of Anne Widdecombe would be alarmed by the leader of a major political party now reposting an image of a man wearing a T-shirt, seemingly calling for Nigel Farage's beheading. I can understand why that would be deeply alarming to Nigel Farage and why he objected to it. But I think even though I do have some sympathy for Nigel in this case, I think it was, at the end of the day, supposed to be a joke. I think the chances of anyone seeing that T-shirt and the image of a guillotine on Zach Polanski's feed and interpreting it as a call to behead Nigel Farage, I think the chances of that are pretty remote. And I think it would be setting the bar too high to say any speech which could conceivably be interpreted as incitement to violence by some unstable nutjob out there should be prohibited. I think that's too high a bar, or rather too low a bar. I think we'd end up restricting all kinds of speech for that reason. We can't be held hostage to that degree of risk. I think in this case, even though it was unpleasant and certainly something a responsible leader of a political party would not have done, I think nevertheless, I don't think Zach Polanski should be prosecuted for reposting that particular image.
Thank you so much, Toby. I really appreciate you coming on to the show.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you so much. So we have Colin waiting?
We do, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Colin, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to talking to you. So you're a former detective. You was crucial to the capture of serial killer Levi Byfield, and also in putting the famous Night Stalker Delroy Grant behind bars. You've also been displayed by Martin Clunes in the popular drama Manhunt. And you're now the Reform UK Crime Commissioner for Norfolk, which I'm very excited to have you on, and congratulations on your new role. So
thank you so much, Ellie.
No problem. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, you did spend over 30 years in the Metropolitan Police, and you led some of Britain's most high-profile murder investigations. Looking back on that career, I just wondered what you're actually most proud of.
At the time, I was really proud that we put some really bad people in prison, and I thought that was it, that was job done. As time's gone on, I now realise that the thing I'm most proud of is that we saved literally hundreds of women and girls from becoming victims of Levi Belfield and then Delroy Grant afterwards. If we'd have not succeeded, both of those terrible, evil men would have carried on. And it's the ones that we saved that I'm most proud of now.
And you've seen Britain change enormously over your career. What do you think the biggest issue is facing policing and crime in Britain today?
Oh, the biggest issue is trust and confidence of the public, because it's really, really difficult to police in the traditional British style if you don't have a degree of cooperation from the public. And various things have happened over the last 5, 10, 15, even 20 years that have gradually eroded that trust. And now we're at a stage where we can't take that trust for granted anymore with the law-abiding general population. And that's a tragedy in many ways, because the police are the public and the public are the police was the old maxim. And we need to make sure that we can re-engage with the people in the communities that we police, and that we can get their trust back. And that's so it's not something, trust can be destroyed in an instant, but it takes a long time to build it back, and that's where we are really.
And how do you think we do build that trust back? Because as you said, it's so important, and it's kind of what holds a nation together.
Yeah, it is difficult, but I think we've got to engage, we've got to be more visible, we've got to take more time to stop and talk to people. which because of all the cuts and the lack of resources which the police now suffer, we've lost so many resources, we've lost so many police stations, and we've got a much bigger population as well. So there isn't the time, and the demands on officers are so high, particularly everyday response officers that most of the public see, that they don't have time to stop and talk anymore. And we need to try and get back to the idea of having officers more in touch with their neighbourhoods and talking to people, and also show that we will police without fear or favour, that we will police equally before the law. The cries of two-tier policing have been going on for some time now, and I think most sensible people have come to realise that actually it does exist, and that I know the previous Prime Minister said it didn't, but there was in black and white with the Police Race Action Plan that officers were being expected to treat different sectors of the community differently, and I think that is very, very corrosive of the trust and confidence of the wider population. So we need to make sure that people understand that that's the law, there's the line, that's where the line is drawn. If you cross it, you break the law, and it doesn't matter who you are or what your reason is, we will deal with it.
And what we're seeing come up time and time again is the issue of knife crime, and young people especially feeling the need to have a knife on them, whether that be for protection or whatever it is. But we also know that you carrying a knife means it's much more likely that you end up getting into an incident. What do we need to do to actually stop people carrying knives?
Okay, so there are two problems here on two parallel tracks, if you like. Yeah, there is the acute problem, which is the person that's outside your studio now with a knife that's going to use it soon. And we have the longer term problem of diverting and educating young people that they shouldn't be using knives. You can't have one without the other. And Glasgow had an experiment, or had an operation, if you like, some years ago that's held up. They treated knife crime as a public health issue. Yes, they did. But they also treated it as a stop and search issue, and they increased the rate of stop and search in the street by 300% during that time, and they saw a knife crime fall. So there's a twin track approach. One takes time, but one has to be done straight away. And what has to be done straight away is the use of stop and search, because there is no other way of enforcing the laws against carrying knives in public places than doing stop and search. That's the only way to enforce the laws. And I always say this: if somebody says that they are against stop and search, they are against enforcing the laws against carrying knives. And I think in the current climate and with the current carnage that's going on our streets, that's not a good look. That's not a defensible position to say we should not enforce the laws against carrying knives. So it is about stop and search. It's about using it intelligently, but it's about making sure that young people realise that there is a very, very good chance of being stopped and searched if they go out onto the street, so they will not take a knife with them. And there's two things you can think of with that. One is that people don't try to take knives onto aeroplanes. People don't try to take knives into courtrooms. And why is that? It's because they know that they're going to be searched, they're going to go through a knife arch, and they know that that weapon will be found. We need to try and get that mentality onto our streets. And the second point on that is that when some people, particularly those who are from the left and who are against stop and search, when they say, oh, well, only 10% or only 20% of stops and searches are positive where knives are found, I say good. We want that figure to be zero. It never will be, but we want it. The closer it gets to zero, the more stops that police officers do and don't find knives, the more we know that people aren't carrying it. And we want to get to that position where people think it's just not worth the risk of taking a knife out onto the street because they're going to get stopped and searched.
And when you were kind of leading investigations, you were dealing with newspapers, television, that kind of media. Now with the advent of social media, you've got people kind of sharing rumours all the time as soon as some news comes out, and you've got thousands of people kind of becoming amateur detectives online, really. How do you deal with that? Does it make things much harder?
Yeah, it makes it impossible in some circumstances for the police to do the right thing. And I think they're behind the curve to a degree of understanding how fast social media is and how quickly unfounded rumours can get inflated and spread to literally millions of people. And I think we saw it, you know, and I'm not going to talk about the actual crime because it's obviously sub judice now in terms of Anne Widdecombe's death. But I think what we saw there initially was a police service that was thinking we need to say something, because if we don't fill this vacuum, then people are going to speculate. And they were kind of bounced into saying things before they were ready to say them. And I think that's a trap that we need to avoid, because investigating murders or serious crimes is hard, and things come at you very quickly, and you know they change the situation very quickly. And I think it's all right to go out, and people should expect police to go out and say, look, we don't know yet. We don't know yet, but we're working on it. And as soon as we do know, we'll tell you. And the trade-off for that, to make that credible and to have that still promoting trust and confidence, is that as soon as that fact is known, then there has to be another press conference or another statement released to tell the truth, so that information gets out there as quickly as it can do, safely and without jeopardising the investigation. But what we're seeing is that because of what happened in the wake of things like Southport and Nottingham and Manchester bombing, and all sorts of things like that, the rumour mill on social media ignites immediately. Something big happens. And what police need to understand is that they need to be in a position to respond to that, and they need to be in a position to put the truth out there quickly. Because if the truth goes out quickly, then that stops all the rumouring and the scaremongering and so speculation that you see on social media. But of course, in saying that, it does mean that the truth has to be out there. It does mean you have to put the truth into the public domain and not be frightened of the consequences, because the truth will come out at some point. And even if the truth is unpalatable, or you know that it's going to be unpalatable to the public for some reason, I think there's still a duty to get it out there as quickly as you can, so that you stop all this speculation. And you know, we all have to deal with the truth. So you know, we saw after Southport where we're in this sort of unhappy situation now, where if there is a major crime or major incident of some sort, and there is a lack of openness about what went on and who's involved, the speculation is such that everyone just assumes, oh well, they would tell us if it's if it's nothing to do with anything to do with asylum seekers or illegal immigrants or something like that, they would say so. They say that straight away because they haven't told us who the suspect is or what the suspect looks like. It must mean that, and that's what we need to try and avoid. And that's why I say we have to be there with the truth and accept that the truth sometimes has consequences, but we shouldn't shy away from the truth.
Yeah. And you are now the Police and Crime Commissioner in Norfolk. What inspired you for kind of getting back into politics after such a long time, you know, in policing?
I think, I mean, this role came about completely out of the blue, to be honest. The thing that inspired me to get involved in politics was that I think many people in my party, feel that the traditional parties have let this country and its population down to some degree. People like me who have got children and now grandchildren feel that we wanted to leave something for them to enjoy in the same way as we have, and were worried that wasn't going to happen. And that made me get involved. And Ellie, I'm always the sort of person, I'm never the sort of person that sits at the sidelines and watches, you know. I tend,
that.
No matter what it is, I get involved. If it's, you know, every club I've ever been a member of, I think I've ended up on the committee or organising it somewhere or other. That's just the sort of person that I am. And so it kind of came about gradually. I joined Reform. I became an officer in my local branch. I was then asked to write some stuff for them last year about crime and policing, which I did. That led to them appointing me as the Police and Crime Advisor. And then earlier this year, when the Police and Crime Commissioner for Norfolk resigned unexpectedly, and there was a by-election, well, I live in Norfolk, there's a vacancy there, you seem to be the ideal person. And when I thought about it, I realised it really was an opportunity to do some good, to make a change for the better. For these people, I've been up in this part of the world now for 14 years, and I don't anticipate leaving it. And it's a lovely, beautiful county, a beautiful part of the world that I feel I can make a contribution to. And I thought, well, best we get on and do it before you're too old to do anything.
Yeah, and finally, after everything that you've seen in your career, you've seen the very best and the very worst of humanity, really. What still gives you hope?
Oh, what gives me hope? I tell you what gives me hope. Two things. In the policing terms, when I speak to my son and his friends and colleagues who are actually there at the sharp end delivering policing now, and I realise that they've got the same desire to serve their community and protect the vulnerable that I had all those years ago. That doesn't change. The circumstances in which they do policing has changed immensely, but thankfully the desire for young people, brave young people, to sign on and go out there and protect their communities and protect the vulnerable hasn't changed. That gives me hope. And the other thing is that infrequently in my kind of roles, various roles, I get to visit young people in schools, and I'm just amazed at the quality of thought and the quality of individual that I see. And everybody, particularly when you get to my sort of age, the young generation know nothing. That's really not true. There are some great people coming through, and I think they're the future, the hope for Britain is that we've still got wonderful young people who want this to be a great country.
I completely agree. Thank you so much, Colin, for coming on, and keep up the good work. Your work is definitely not going unnoticed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ellie. I'll come on any time to see you.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed that. I mean, what a man. I mean, we need more people like Colin, and that really gives, I hope that gives lots of people hope, including me, that, when he's saying that he goes into schools and speaks to young people, that he still sees a passion for this country and people that want to protect this country. That is so important that we have young people like that. And I say that as a young person myself who cares about this country so much and wants to see it do well. And I think that the police can learn a lot from Colin, and I hope that he has more of an influence in the future. Do we have Adam Cherry with us?
We do indeed.
Great. Adam, hi.
Oh, afternoon, Ellie. How's the first show going?
It's going very well. Thank you for being one of my the last guest on my first show, but you've still made it to the first show, Adam.
I'll try to end the first show well. Let's see how we do.
Yeah, we need to end it on a good note. So let's try and be a little bit more positive in our conversation. So you're obviously from Guido Fawkes, and you have a new podcast coming out, a daily thing that you said that you're doing, kind of moving from the classic print journalism into the online space. Can you tell us more about that?
I mean, it's early days, so I don't want to preempt it too much and give too much away. But you are right. We want to move into the live show format, similar to what you're doing, UK Live, and what Mike's doing, because that's where the audience is, and frankly, it's a lot of fun. So I hope, again, I don't want to announce anything prematurely, but in September we're looking at pushing into this space quite aggressively, because for the last year or so I rejoined Guido from GB News about a year ago. In fact, almost exactly to the day. And we've done some podcasting. We've got our own studio already, a bespoke studio built for the very first time, very fancy. But the turnaround is too slow, I think, for the news flow, right? The 24-hour news cycle is such that we want to jump on stories immediately and start talking about them as they break, rather than a couple of days later or whatever, given that we're a small team. So we are still going to do some pre-recorded podcasts, but I think the direction of that will change slightly, and we'll have a broader sort of conversational perspective on things. And the news, the exciting day-to-day bread and butter of what we do, will be on the live show, a bit like what you guys are doing. Because as I say, that's what people want, and that's what I enjoy as well, having come from GB News for the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that it will be a great success. Guido Fawkes is obviously very popular anyway, so I'm sure that they will follow you onto the independent space. And what do you actually think about that, the kind of move away from mainstream media into independent spaces like this?
Yeah, I mean, so Guido's in a unique space on this because it has a strong pedigree and it's been around for over 20 years, but it was really the pioneer of that independent blogger first new media style, even though it's old enough to have it to order a drink at the bar now. So we get the best of both. But I have seen what it's like in the mainstream media, and still go on GB News frequently and do some traditional broadcasting, so to speak. But you obviously have more freedom. You can have more fun when you own your own platform and you build your own audience. There's no Ofcom. There's no sort of referee trying to curtail what you can speak about, and it is refreshing. It also, you have to stand on your own 2 feet. There's not an army of producers behind you. There's not mega bucks behind it in the same way. So you live and die by the quality of your content and how much fun you have. But that's a reason to do it, in my view. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you've got lots of comments coming in actually, just saying how excited they are for this new
good
channel. So I mean, I'm sure you'll be very, very popular. But let's have a chat about Andy Burnham without kind of bringing the vibe down too much. But he's quite actually a vibes-based politician, so maybe he'll like this. What do you think about his premiership so far? And I mean, we saw during the by-election, I went up to Makerfield, and the vibe was very good, and people were very excited for him to come in. How long do you think that will actually last?
A very, very short time. Excuse me. Look, he was entirely untested leading up to his election in Makerfield, that is. And then, of course, beyond that, when he was unchallenged when he stole the crown from Starmer. So he's had a very easy run of it so far. In his first 2 weeks, okay, very good. He's done a couple of interesting or fun, light TikTok clips, eating Scampi chips or whatever. As soon as he encounters serious issues, which I would argue the first instance of that was with the small boat crossings in the last week or so, he's a little bit more shaky. It doesn't help that he's gone on holiday. Now, we mentioned this on Guido earlier this week, saying this is the earliest a Prime Minister has retreated to the sunbed in modern times, 15 days into the job. Bear in mind, he's saying he needs to create a 10-year plan and has all these ambitious ideas. He flees. And we got some criticism for that, me personally, for attacking him for this. Now, look, on this narrow point, I accept that every now and then a Prime Minister in a high-profile job deserves some time off. But 2 weeks in is ridiculous, and you wouldn't get away with it in the private sector. So I think it's absolutely right that he faces some scrutiny for that. He could have waited until Christmas. More broadly, like I said, he's still untested in serious ways. The budget at the end of October is the real moment of truth, if you like. That's when we find out how much more Healey is willing to borrow, where our taxes are going to rise, and all the grisly stuff. All the columnists and sketch writers are going to have a great time writing about a budget that's so close to Halloween. Sure. I'm sure we'll have some fun with it as well. but that's the real test. That and conference. We at Guido have been saying for a long time as well. This is a slightly separate point, but I do think it's interesting. The threat of an early election. He denies it publicly, but obviously he would. The moment you show some ambiguity there, that sets the first domino off. So I think the fact that he's waiting for the report from, I think it's the Casey report, isn't it? He's moved forward by a year. That's telling, because is she going to come back and say, look, we need to do more on social care and we need to fund it in a big way? And he goes, well, I don't have the flexibility to do what I want to do on this area unless I significantly raise taxes, and the only way I can do that is via income tax or VAT or whatever, and I have to go to the country to get a mandate to do that. So I think it's a long, slightly verbose answer, but there's a lot to unpack. I think fundamentally we don't know what he thinks on many things. The budget is the first opportunity for him to prove if he's got a plan, and then I think beyond that we're facing an early election a year later.
Do you think that we're being slightly too harsh on Andy Burnham already, seeing as he's quite a new Prime Minister? And also in terms of the holiday thing, I understand why optically, don't get me wrong, it looks bad. But would you not rather him go on holiday in the middle of recess than when September comes around?
Well, sure. I mean, I'd rather he not go on holiday at all when he's so new to the job and clearly doesn't have particularly fleshed out plans. Like I said, he could have waited until Christmas. There's a pretty lengthy recess around then as well, and from December into January. So it's not impossible. No one forced him to take this job. No one forced him to storm the gates of Downing Street and force his way in. So I have very limited sympathy for those who say, give him a break. He deserves he deserves a holiday. What? You know, he didn't deserve the keys to Downing Street, or, you know, he's not entitled to those. So why should he be entitled to this holiday? Like I said, it goes back to the fundamental point. He needs to provide a plan. He needs to be in the. He needs to be in the driving seat at a time of serious political peril. I mean, look at the state of immigration. Look at the state of our public finances. You know, there are serious questions that he needs to answer very, very quickly. And going on holiday is not the way to do it.
And what do you think the chances are, I know you just mentioned it earlier, of there actually being an early general election?
Yeah, pretty high. When I say early, I don't mean tomorrow. I mean, I don't see it going. I don't see it going to 2029. Okay. I think the earliest, or rather, I think the most realistic scenario is, like I said, mid to late 2027. So about a year from now, maybe into just before the conference season of 2027. Yeah. He could do it at this conference, but I'd be surprised by that. There's an argument for it to capitalise on early momentum and before he's made too many mistakes and too many difficult decisions. So there is a case for it, but I think it's more likely that he'll want to have enough time to bed in, to demonstrate who he is as a politician, what his big ideas are, and then put that manifesto, that package to the country and say, look, I'm constrained by a manifesto that you didn't elect me on, and no one did. And it's time to move on from it. Fresh start. Look what I'm capable of. All these early policy announcements, such that they are kind of chicken feed, but they were clearly designed to distance himself from the previous administration and show that he's fresh and he gets it, and not everything is going to be gloom and doom, and he's got some new ideas. Fine. I think you give him a year. In his mind, give him a year. It's not too early, it's not too late. It's about the right time in balancing between accomplishing things in power whilst also, you know, not going so late that he's made enough mistakes that his popularity has dipped significantly.
Lastly, obviously, even a year is a hell of a lot of time in politics. If you had to,
well, it's half a Starmer's premiership at all, yeah.
Yeah, if you had to predict the result of the next general election, what would you say?
Oh, difficult. Oh, this is.
It's a hard question, I know, but
it's a very hard question. Yeah, I mean, it depends on so many things. Which is a wishy-washy answer. I think Labour have a much better chance than they did under Starmer, which is not saying much because the bar was low. I mean, they were going to crash to 10% under him. It wouldn't surprise me if, provided Burnham times it correctly, he's looking at some sort of deal with the Lib Dems. Or, I mean, there's no way he gets a 160-seat majority again. Labour's political capital has been depleted. But I think he has a better chance. It depends entirely on what the situation is on the right, really, because he could sneak in through the middle if the right is divided between three parties. So you sort of saw that. You saw the result of a depleted right-wing flank in the 2024 election. So Starmer wins a massive majority on a very small percentage of the vote. You could see that happen again. The maths, it only requires a few hundred votes here or there in so many seats that, you know, you can end up with an entirely different makeup of the Commons. So I don't know, to be honest. I don't know, but I think Labour's chances are better than they were. It really depends on whether the right can sort its house out.
Adam, thank you very much for joining me on my first ever live show. Thank you.
Cheers, thank you.
See you later, bye. And that's it. That is the end of the show now. All of our guests are done. I hope you've all enjoyed this. I hope I haven't been too awful for my first time.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Pooch. So yeah, thank you all for joining me, and I hope that I will see all of you soon. And thank you very much for joining me. Hope it was all okay. Hope you enjoyed the guests. I thought it was actually really interesting talking to, especially Colin. His experience is just immense, and the work he's doing is fantastic. And I hope you come away from this feeling a little bit more hope in the future of this country. So thank you very much for all tuning in today, and hope to see you again soon.
And just to confirm, Ellie, are you or are you not Dan Hodges' daughter?
And I am not Dan Hodges' daughter. Just to clarify. Thanks. Okay.